Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Titans Monday. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up? Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you. I am so glad to be back. That's right. I mean, look, we had a football game yesterday, a disastrous football game yesterday. I'm going to have to be on the air. Let me say this. First of all, I want to thank everybody. I got your messages yesterday. I want to thank everybody for everything you said. It was quite a week that we had last week. And, everybody says that having your first child is kind of life-changing, and I would say that that's exactly how I felt. But let's get to the Titans. Let's get to Titans Monday. The Titans' performance yesterday against Cincinnati. Ian, did you watch that game yesterday?
Most of it, yeah.
Oh, God, it was bad. It honestly made me feel like I never left. Because not one thing about yesterday's horrible game. It looked horrible on TV. The two teams playing were horrible. The weather seemed horrid. The quarterback play was horrid. Even Joe Burrow. Now, look, Joe Burrow is a stone-cold assassin. And I love that about Joe Burrow. But even by Joe Burrow standards, Joe Burrow was horrible. He didn't throw for 400 yards. He threw that terrible interception at the beginning of the game. He fumbled the ball into T'Vondre Sweat. That was exciting. But it was awful. But it shouldn't surprise you that not one thing about yesterday's game changed my opinion about the Titans, where they sit right now, and where they're headed. They need to clean house. But I've been saying that for how long? 2 months, 3 months? Ian, how long have I been begging for them to clean house?
I don't know. Good question. Not exactly sure on that.
I'm trying to think of when the game this year that I said, okay, enough's enough, time to move on.
I don't know.
Kind of felt that way the whole time, but again, 2 months? I don't even know. So this Monday is no different than last Monday when they lost to that terrible Jacksonville team at home. And they scored 6 points. So if you think that today on a Titan Monday, because it was so bad yesterday, it could have been an absolute rear-end spanking against a bad Bengal team that is not going to the playoffs, and instead you could argue, well, it was only 10 points because the guy from Cincinnati dropped the ball. It was awful. So if you think I'm going to turn up the volume and call for firings louder than I've already been doing, I don't see any point in that. But here's what I think yesterday did do. At least here's what I hope. Because again, maybe this could be a good thing. It makes a lot more of what I believe, what I have believed for a while, what I think many Titans fans truly believe about the management of this ball club. It makes it more obvious. It makes it easier to justify. This time last year, I called for a house cleaning too, and that included Mike Vrabel, who is way better than what they've got right now. And when I said it, they said, Jared Stillman is a racist. You cannot fire a general manager after 1 year. Plus, his draft picks are good, Jared. Look at the quarterback. Yeah, that was last year. Again, people would have been mad. If they had cleaned house at the end of the year the way they should have and brought in an experienced football person to run the operation and go from there and hire the coach and decide on the quarterback and use the 7th pick and all of those things, if they had done what they should have done, people would have been mad. People aren't going to be mad this year. Will Levis and fix the mistakes from that bad Mike Vrabel crew. That was his job, right? Was to right the wrongs of what Vrabel and his buddies and everybody else, what they did one way or another. And yet this team is inarguably worse than they were last season. Rand Carthon drafted Will Levis, and he hired Brian Callahan. So whatever blame you want to put, if you want to say it's Levis, if you want to say it's Vrabel, if you want to say it's Callahan, if you want to say it's Carthon, well, Vrabel's already gone. And Levis is done. And Callahan was brought in to coach Levis, so he failed. And Carthon drafted Levis and hired Callahan, so he's failed. It is a complete and total train wreck. And it is now beyond obvious. Why? Because it's not just one game. It's not just 1 week. It's every game. It's every week. Against Washington, it was an embarrassment from the opening kickoff. Against Jacksonville, you scored 6 points against the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL. And yesterday, Joe Burrow spotted you 7 points to begin the game, fumbled the ball. You had a very, very generous pass interference call given your way. They gave up a touchdown by not holding on to the ball, and you still got smoked against a Bengal team that stinks. And let's say this about the Bengals. Again, they're not trying to farm their land. I think that Bengal team sucks so bad, they should fire their coach. And yet it was so easy for them, even with Joe Burrow spotting you 7 points to start the game. The Titans are horrendous on offense. They are overrated on defense, and special teams, which wasn't the bugaboo yesterday, has been an abject failure all season long. That's not disputable. Coaching has been at best, and I think this is the best thing you can say about the coaching. Coaching has been at best uninspiring, and your number one draft pick yesterday probably showed us that he can't play the position that they picked him for. What's the old saying? Other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Because that's what watching the Tennessee Titans in 2024 has been. And it has been that way since the very beginning of the season. The Bears have fired their coach, and that was a disaster. The Jets have fired their coach, and that was a disaster. Jacksonville last week is going to fire their coach, and that was a disaster. And Cincinnati should fire their coach, and that was a disaster. There's not even really a lot of bright spots in between. And that's the story of the 2024 Tennessee Titans. But there is some good news. The good news is they've given us all the answers that we need. I remember listening to Robbie and Joe during training camp, and Robbie said, this is the year that we need to know about Will Levis. And Joe said to Robbie, he looked at him and goes, what are the odds that this time next year, talking about training camp 2025, what are the odds this time next year we're going to be having the exact same conversation? That this is the year, 2025, that we need to learn about Will Levis. At the time, I thought it was 75%. Now it's 0. Yeah, the free agency bonanza. How did L'Jarius Sneed do yesterday? They got a left tackle, can't play left tackle, probably needs to move over to right tackle. How's that working out? Again, the answers are there. You know. Carthon can't do it. Callahan can't do it. Levis can't do it. It's done. And so at least we're not going into an offseason where there's a question mark hanging over the Titans' head of whether or not they are on the right path. Yesterday, the Jacksonville game, the Washington game, the Jets game, the Malik Willis Green Bay Packer game, the Detroit game with Khalif Raymond, the Buffalo game. I'm sure I left a doozy out there somewhere. They're all signs that this organization is not on the right path. And I think there are Titan fans out there that want to believe that their organization has a clue. But that's what games like yesterday, coupled with the week before, coupled with the Washington one before, that's what makes it easy. That's what makes this easy. You know now in your heart they can't do it. And that's the positive of the 2024 season. We now all know. They've given us the answers. Callahan has, Levis has, Carthon has. That is, if you're willing to actually hear them. If you're willing to leave your affirmation of what you want to be true at the door and to view the information that we all saw yesterday, the Sunday before that, and the Sunday before that. And I don't know where the owner sits, but I know where reality is, and that is it's time to move on. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll go to you early and often. And that there is one big fear that I've got, and it's scaring me to death. And I heard it today. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
Burrow looking, has time, dancing around, pocket breaking down, eludes it. Another man he skips around, throws for the touchdown. Chase Brown, the receiving end, after a Joe Burrow two-step buys time, and it's a 7-6 ball game.
Defends the pass very well, but you cannot allow somebody with Joe Burrow's skill set this much time in the pocket. There's those A and B gaps that Laura just mentioned. You're not going to let him up through the middle, so he comes to the outside. Look at all the time he buys.
I mean, it wasn't even fair. Joe Burrow playing the Titans yesterday, and that's because the Titans are a poorly run organization. You know, it wasn't that long ago that you and Cincinnati were neck and neck in a playoff game, even one that Ryan Tannehill absolutely crapped away. It wasn't that long ago. And this is where we are today. So, look, you can say whatever you want about John Robinson, who, by the way, apparently is interviewing for the Jets GM job. You can say whatever you want about Robinson or Vrabel or Tannehill or Henry or whatever, but it doesn't really matter today because those aren't the Titans' current problems. Ran Carthon is the current problem. Brian Callahan is the current problem. Will Levis is the current problem. Chad Brinker is the current problem. That whole Fakakta phenomenon, whatever you want to call it. And I feel like yesterday's game, coupled with the Jacksonville game, coupled with the Washington game, added to the Jets, the Bears. We can go down the list of these horrible games that have happened this year. Malik Willis coming in. I mean, we've seen Joe Flacco. But my biggest fear is the people that don't want to believe will stick their heads in the sand and pretend like yesterday wasn't the people whose fault it was fault. They'll blame Robinson, they'll blame Vrabel, they'll blame Tannehill, they'll blame Jared Stillman, they'll blame whoever. I heard Mel Kiper Jr., you know, he's all big on Levis. And I heard him on last week's First Draft podcast where he was talking about how Will Levis didn't lose in the Jacksonville game where Chickaconquo was wide open for a touchdown on 4th down and Will didn't throw him the ball. Brian Callahan cost them the game because, again, Mel doesn't want to admit that Levis stinks. Well, my biggest fear is that Amy Adams Strunk is going to be unwilling to listen to the answer that her football team keeps telling her every single Sunday. Why? Because this mess is on her hands, and everybody knows it. She was the one that fired John Robinson, and it was her comments on the statement when they did it. She was the one that fired Mike Vrabel because she's the one that sat down with Mike Keith when they did it. Ran Carthon got up there and held a disastrous press conference in which he made it very clear. Amy fired Mike, not me. This mess is on her hands. Carthon is her hire, Callahan is her hire, and Levis is her quarterback. And Gentry Estes just went right after her last week. She didn't have those problems in the past before she went Leroy Jenkins and fired John Robinson or when she fired Mike Vrabel. Because at that point, everybody was mad at Mike Vrabel. Before that, everybody was mad at John Robinson. But she's fired them. People blame Ryan Tannehill for the 3 interceptions against Cincinnati. People blame Todd Downing. They don't blame her for Todd Downing. But when it comes to Ran Carthon and when it comes to Brian Callahan, when it comes to Will Levis, those are choices she made. And I heard PK this morning on Robbie and Joe, and he said exactly, he says he's hearing, and granted, Paul thought Vrabel was coming back since Vrabel was his biggest source in the building, and Chad Brinker is probably Paul's biggest source now in the building, and Chad Brinker is obviously in favor of everybody coming back, because if not, he's probably out too. So take it with a grain of salt. I don't know if that's Paul's sourcing or not. I have no idea. But Paul said on Robbie and Joe today that he thinks everybody's coming back.
I don't even know that Mason Rudolph helps you necessarily, gives you a better chance to win. I don't think Callahan's in trouble. I mean, obviously it would help him to win games in the eyes of management, in the eyes of Amy Adams Strunk, who's the people that matters. But I've been fishing around, and I get the sense that everybody expects Amy Adams Strunk to stick with the status quo and to be patient. Now, that doesn't mean that she can't surprise everybody and not be patient and do something.
Oh, that's enough. I don't need to hear Paul's little, his whole spiel about how she could fire somebody because, she did that last year, which she told everybody Vrabel was safe and then fired him. I got it. I don't need the disclaimer. But again, he's like, I've been doing some fishing, and I think, everybody thinks Amy Adams Strunk's bringing everybody back. Oh, no. Oh, God. And if Paul's right, and she decides to be patient, which I think is code word for stupid, then she's not listening to what the games are telling her and what the results are telling her. All she would be doing is picking a narrative that affirms and soothes her own beliefs in herself. But again, that's not reality. The biggest defense of Rand Carthon, for instance, is that John Robinson's misses in the 2020, 2021, and 2022 drafts are why this team is so bad. But you got smoked by 3 touchdowns against Washington, and they missed on Chase Young in 2020. They missed on Jamin Davis in 2021, and they missed on Jahan Dotson in 2022. So that doesn't really hold a lot of water, right? Or the idea when it comes to Brian Callahan about, it's going to take time for the system, and it's going to be they scored 6 points against Jacksonville. Aaron Rodgers looked like Aaron Rodgers yesterday against that same Jacksonville team. And then Will Levis, I don't know how it's over. I don't know how you excuse what happened yesterday. I don't know how you do that. Well, he had a bad day. He had a bad day the week before that. He's had like 7 bad days this year. At some point, that means you're not good. So the answers are obvious. Everybody knows it. And yet I am scared to death because Amy has the blood on her hands of firing Robinson and firing Vrabel and replacing them with incompetence that she's not going to do it. Because again, if she chooses to believe that it's all Robinson's fault or chooses to believe that it's all Vrabel's fault, even though this team is worse than whenever Vrabel coached the team, if she does that, she's just trying to affirm what she believes and not really acknowledge the truth. Well, Jared, did you know that Dan Campbell, they lost a bunch of games too. Dan Campbell won 9 games in year 2. This is year 2 of Rand Carthon. They might win 4. Ian got drugged through the coals when he set his expectations at 4 wins this year, and they may not even meet Ian's expectations. So when it comes to what I heard from Paul yesterday, again, I'm not going to take that as the gospel to say, Paul Kaharski is reporting that Amy's bringing everybody back, because, Lord, that scares me. But I also don't think he's making it up. And the only way that she could want to bring these guys back is if she wants to believe some bull crap that is just simply not true. And that's what scares the crap out of me, is that she might just do that exact thing. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. The quarterback got benched yesterday. The coach tried to walk it back today. I got a thought on that, and then we're to your phone. Stillman and Company on a Titans Monday, 1025 The Game.
Last 5 possessions, you see how ugly it's gotten. Fumble, interception, interception, a punt, and then the 4th pick 6 of Will Levis this season. And Mason Rudolph's about to come into this ballgame for the Titans.
Yeah, when you have 3 plays for minus 15 yards and a punt, and that's your best possession in the last 5, it is not a good day offensively. I don't know why he's not seeing the field as clean as he should.
There you go. That was the official benching of Will Levis yesterday. And all I could think about when Will Levis got benched, which I tweeted out before they benched him, I said, Will Levis is making this decision really easy for the Titans. But all I could think about was that day in Denver, Mike Vrabel slumped over at the waist, looking like he could not get a poop out no matter how hard he tried. When Marcus Mariota, enough was enough. And all I remember is the old man at the time saying, once you make that change, you're not making it back. It's just the reality. Once you make the change, you don't go back. And yesterday, they made the change. And today, Brian Callahan tried to walk it back. Brian Callahan said, look, it wasn't his day. Well, there is no such thing as the bullpen in the NFL. This is not baseball, where you get rocked in the 3rd inning of a regular season game in May at Colorado at Coors Field, and the manager comes out and says, oh, shucks, we'll get him next time. This is the NFL. This isn't hockey, where a goalie gets pulled one night and stuck right back in the crease the next, and everybody says that's still our number 1 guy. This is the NFL. You take the quarterback out, unless it's a 99-0 blowout. You take the quarterback out, you sent the message. Brian Callahan did that. You also can't tell me it's not a benching when he was asked who the quarterback was, and he wouldn't say today who the quarterback is. That means that Will Levis is not your starting quarterback as of today. And again, in those relationships, quarterback and team relationships, there is no questioning how you feel about one another. CJ Stroud might have a bad game. They're not benching him. So once you make the move, the old man said, once you make the move, you don't go back. And I know Jimmy Johnson benched Troy Aikman for Steve Berline, and it ended up working out. But those are exceptions, not rules. I'm sure there are people out there that have been divorced 18 times, and marriage number 19 is the one, and they live happily ever after. But that's probably the exception and not the rule. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Let's start off with Turbo, who's going to kick us off today on the program. Turbo, thank you for calling. Go ahead. Turbo. Okay, call us back. You know the number. Let's go to Eric, who's up next here on our program, has been waiting patiently. Eric, go ahead.
Man, Jared, I got to tell you, the ownership with the Titans is piss poor. I mean, I don't know what you got to do with Amy. I think because we don't have the national media like the Cowboys, that's why she's not getting flamed like Jerry Jones is for how he's running the organization. I don't know if she needs to go on one of them Aaron Rodgers ayahuasca retreats or what, but she needs to get it together with the Titans because this is just abysmal. I mean, I don't even know if I want to watch the Predators or the Titans anymore just because of how poor they are.
Okay, so here's what I'll say about Amy Adams Strunk. Here's what I'll say about Amy, because, again, I think that's the big issue there. There's nothing you can do about Amy. You know, this idea of, I don't know what you do with Amy. There is no doing anything with Amy. She owns the team. Just like Jerry in Dallas. I don't know what you do with Jerry Jones. I do nothing, because Jerry Jones owns the Dallas Cowboys, and Jerry Jones can do whatever he wants. Here's the thing about Amy. And I've been thinking a lot about this because I do think there is a chance. Granted, I can't believe that it is a big one, but I do believe there is a chance that Paul might be right and she's going to bring everybody back. That at the end of the year, she's going to say nothing. And Rand's going to hold a press conference where he says the ball didn't bounce their way, and they go into the offseason. I don't think this fan base is going to accept that. And I don't think she can handle a fan base that thinks that she's a dope and won't show up to games. I mean, again, I'm not saying boycott the Titans, last year the Titans had a bad season. She fired Vrabel. Callahan had a press conference, won the press conference. Everybody liked it. And they talked all this crap all offseason about how good they were going to be, and people bought it. I don't think people are going to listen to that this year. Like when Rand Carthon goes and sits down on Taylor Lewan's bus and says things like, the vibes are so immaculate in the building, and we nailed every one of our coaching picks. Or he says on Sirius XM NFL radio, we checked every box this offseason. I don't think fans are going to listen to that. And I just don't see Amy, who is trying to sell PSLs for a new stadium, but also an ownership that I do feel like cares what the fans think. I don't see Amy sitting there and taking it. So that's why I do think publicly shaming them and just telling it like it is. This has been a train wreck since the day they won at Green Bay. Needs to happen so that we don't let these bullcrap narratives get out there that affirm that you're on the right track when by no metric are you headed in the right direction. Let's go to Hervo, who's up next here on the program. Hervo, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Mr. Stillman.
Yep, go.
I don't want this to be like all about you, but I listen to your show a lot, and everything you say, I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, okay, so you have an owner that fired a GM and a coach with a proven track record, and then hired a guy that's never been a GM, and then hired a coach that's never called plays, and they thought that was a good decision. You know what I mean? None of it makes sense. I mean, hindsight's 20/20. I get it, but I mean, none of it. I mean, Vrabel was solid. I mean, I know he came in after a playoff coach. I get that, but I mean, this is how. I mean, the reason they left Houston to come to Tennessee is because Houston didn't like Bud Adams. I mean,
yeah. That's
the whole point. So, I mean, this is they're destroying something that's really good, and she doesn't know how to run it, and it's just, it's really sad.
Well, it's not good anymore, but I know what you mean, and I agree. And here's what I'll say. Again, ask John McClain. There's an entire NFL Network documentary. Thank you for your call. There's an entire NFL Network documentary about the Houston Oilers and why they left Houston, and it's called Houston 93. And the story basically is the 93 Oilers, Bud Adams said, if you don't win the Super Bowl, I'm blowing the team up. They lost at home in the wild card round to Kansas City, and he blew the team up. Whether it was Mike Munchak or Warren Moon or whomever, they were all gone. And so the fans in Houston were so mad that they refused to buy a stadium for the Oilers. So the Oilers moved here, and then they gave that money to the McNair family for the Texans. That's the story. And there's some truth in that. And I think right now, if this were 2 years ago and Amy was trying to get a stadium, I'm not sure she'd be able to do it. Even though the way the lease was written on the current stadium, Amy could have literally kicked her feet up and forced you to pay $1 billion. And they decided not to do that, though they did it in kind of this roundabout way that's different. And ultimately, I do think it's probably a good idea. But there were a lot of other elements at play. But again, I do think there's a chance you would have seen the city council members vote the way the constituency felt. You would have seen the constituency turn on her. That being said, there's really nothing that you can do about it now other than just admit that her decisions over the last 2.5 years have been piss poor. And it brings me back to when they fired Robinson. And this is where I think about, everybody remembers where they were. But I remember that whole week, it was just turned upside down, this idea that they would fire John Robinson the way that they did. And everybody was trying to figure out what, how, who, what, when. I mean, somebody tell me something, what. And I remember being on the phone, and I talked to so many people that I'm like, somebody tell me what happened. And the thing I heard over and over again was, Amy had just had enough of John's bad decision-making with the football team. And I sat there and I thought, oh, no. Because the bad teams do Stupid stuff like that. A.J. Brown spanked the goalpost, fire everybody. And at that point in time, we were used to winning around here. Granted, they didn't win them all. They weren't the Patriots. They weren't the Chiefs. But they sure as hell won a lot more than they lost. And we were used to winning and meaningful Sundays and playoff races and AFC title games and home playoff games. We were used to that around here. And I figured that Amy had actually been the thing that had graduated the traditionally dumb Adams ownership. Hate to say it, but is what it is. And Tommy Smith's fiasco. And it graduated into the I believed, upper echelon of ownership. I really did. And then she fired Robinson. And I thought, oh God. Please tell me he slept with the secretary. Nope, that's not true. Please tell me he was stealing money from the pension fund. Nope, that's not true. Please tell me she caught him scalping ticket. Nope, that's not true. Not even like expensive Taylor Swift tickets in her box? Nope. Not John Robinson. They just didn't like the Caleb Farley pick. And I thought, oh God, that's what the Jets do. That's what the Jags do. That's what the then Washington Commanders, that's what Dan Snyder's team does. The Raiders, the Browns. You know, the Bills used to be stupid too. And then Terry Pagula bought the team and they graduated to a good franchise. And so what you're living through now, because I said it at the time when that happened, I'm like, that's what the dumb teams do. Everybody said, no, Jared, she put her foot down. She understands. She gets it. You do. Okay. Okay. That's fine. You guys keep telling yourselves that. And now you all know. Now there's no question. It is where you are. Ben says, any chance she sells the team after the new stadium is built? Will voicing frustration help that possibility? Again, I don't think so, but who knows? 615-737-1025 is our phone number on the program today. It's a Titans Monday. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. And we'll be giving away a 4-pack of tickets to the Music City Bowl later today, so be listening for that. And tomorrow is your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Rex Show tomorrow morning at 8:45 a.m.
takeaways and you get the early 14-7 lead, do you feel like you're in pretty good?
Thought we were in great shape. I thought that game was playing out exactly how I thought we were capable of playing it. You know, they're a good football team, but I thought that we had a chance to go make a competitive game and had a chance to win it. And the way it started was the way I thought it would go. I thought it was going to be back and forth the whole game, and then we were going to have to do a good job. And ultimately, against a team like that, you can't turn it over, and that's where it got away from us. But I was confident in our game plan. I was confident in how these guys played and came out and ready to play, and ultimately gave them too many chances. And a team like with a quarterback like that, you give them too many chances, they capitalize.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan being like, that wasn't how I expected the game to go. The problem with Brian Callahan, and you're never going to be able to predict everything, no matter how much football you know or don't know or whatever. The problem is that the way you thought everything was going to go this year is not how it's gone. You thought L'Jarius Sneed was going to play 17 games this year. Didn't go that way. You thought Will Levis was going to be a franchise quarterback. Didn't go that way. That's the problem. Not this, man, I thought we were going to go up there the way the game started was how I thought. Yeah, 0-0. Yeah, that's how every game starts, coach. You thought Joe Burrow was going to throw a stupid interception on the second play of the game. I guarantee you didn't think that. Give me a break. Let's go to Michael, who's up next on the Titans. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. First of all, congratulations on your son being born. That's awesome.
Thanks.
I hope that at some point either the Titans are good enough where he's not ashamed to root for him, or he sees a random, Eric Dickerson highlight on YouTube because a Rams fan. But at this point, I don't think he should be a Titans fan. I know you said multiple times you weren't going to force it on him. But the last few games this year, so even compared to a couple of years ago where it was starting to get bad, or when it was bad all last year, I still at least tried to watch all the games. The past few games this year, it's just been like, man, I've got other things to do. I just don't want to sit down and watch this team anymore. So I just gradually keep up with everything. Now and then I hear my dad say something that happens in the room. I'll go check it out. But for the most part, I'm just checked out of the season. I haven't been able to say that in a long time. It's just so disappointing the way that the franchise has gone over the past few years, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel, it seems.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think thank you for your call. I think there are a lot of people that think like you that are like, I'm just not even excited for Sunday. You know what's crazy is I do think that the Titans' terribleness is depressing me for the rest of the league. That I am watching less football, other games, because I am depressed about how bad the Titans are. It's like the 3:30 game. Now, I did watch some of the Buffalo-Detroit game yesterday, and I watched some of the Pittsburgh and Philly game yesterday. But it's like even I'm depressed, where I'm like, I don't want to watch good teams play after watching the Titans. It's like I watched the Titans go out there and put up 10 points against some average NFL team and get housed. And now here's the Eagles and the Ravens. It's like, oh, great. There's Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown. Oh, nice. Let's go to Michael, who's up next here on the program on a Titans Monday. Thank you for calling. What's up, Michael?
Hey, man, Jared, how you doing today?
Good.
Man, I just don't see why Amy fired Mike Vrabel. He led the team to the number 1 seed in the AFC when we had the most injuries in the NFL. And then a couple of years later, you go and you fire him, and you hire Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator on the Bengals, and he doesn't even call the plays there. And then you hire a first-time
Where does this whole not calling the plays thing? Why is this such a big deal to everybody? I don't understand this. Kevin O'Connell didn't call the plays for the Rams, and he's fine with the Vikings. I understand the criticism, and I'll get to your thought on the Vrabel thing. I'll let you finish in a second. But why does it matter that he didn't call the plays? To me, it's whether or not you can manage the football team. And he's not doing a good job of it. But it has nothing to do with whether or not he called plays before.
I don't know, man. How many good seasons did he have with the Bengals? They had the 1 year where they went to the Super Bowl.
They had 2.
Kevin O'Connell, how many good years did he have with the Rams? The Rams were always a good, decent team. The Bengals, they had been sorry before Joe Burrow was there. I'm going to be honest. They only got good once he got there, and they made one run to the Super Bowl and then went in the playoffs a couple of years.
Okay, so I appreciate your call. So, again, Brian Callahan, there's no way to know who's a good coach and who's not unless you're around these people or you know them or you're, again, in the fraternity and know somebody else who's in the fraternity that knows. And even then, you don't know. That's why they interview people for these jobs. And so when it comes to Brian Callahan's resume was good enough of that of a coaching candidate who gets a job. If Brian Callahan did not get a head coaching job last year, I think Brian Callahan will get a head coaching job this year. Just like Bill Belichick. My dad said, why is nobody interested in Bill Belichick? I said, because Bill Belichick's 72 years old and he's a complete a-hole. They don't want that anymore. Pete Carroll's a good dude. And nobody wants Pete Carroll because he's old. And I think Pete can still coach, by the way. But again, when it comes to this show, we fired Mike Vrabel for this. He didn't even call the plays. You only care about that now because they're losing. To me, him not calling the plays in Cincinnati is not the problem. And not only that, I don't think Callahan is the problem. Do I think Callahan is a good coach? No. But do I think Callahan is the problem? No. I think the problem is Amy. And I think the problem is the people Amy is listening to. Chad Brinker, Burke Nighhill, Rand Carthon, guys that have never been a part of successful football teams unless they were lower level down on the food chain. That's the problem. And again, with Brian Callahan, I think that Callahan plays nice, and that's what they wanted. They wanted nice. Unfortunately, I wanted good. A buddy of mine who I used to work with at Sirius, he's a huge Jets fan. He was asking me about Vrabel today. And I told him, I said, Vrabel in New York could be awesome. It also, what I think is more likely, would be a total fireworks show. Like, it would be just constant Vrabel getting in fights with the media, Vrabel acting like a total hardhead, and in 3 years, the entire country wanting to run Vrabel out of New York, which I'm not against. But the problem with Vrabel was he doesn't play nice. And you have to accept his bullcrap. She wasn't willing to do that. I understand that. But when you go out and you look for somebody who's the exact opposite of Mike Vrabel and you get Brian Callahan, you also need to make sure that he can coach. And I don't know if they could do that or not. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Let's get Kyle in here quickly. Kyle's up next on the program. Kyle, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared. It's rough right now, and I've been a fan since day one the Titans got here, and I just don't know where the hope is. Where do we turn from here, and what do we have to look forward to? The draft, not that excited anymore. No future quarterback in Levis. Just please help us out right now. We don't know what to do with ourselves as fans.
Kyle, I listen to you call every day this offseason. You had all the hope in the world. What happened?
This season happened.
I mean, come on now. Are you getting off the train? You getting off the Rand? You leaving the Rand Club?
I need your help, man. I need some advice. I need something. That's why I'm calling and asking you, buddy.
And I appreciate that. Thank you for your call. Here's what I'll say. If she cleans house, we can have some hope. If she hires somebody with experience, we can have some hope. If she runs back the status quo, then we'll be in the exact same spot 1 year from now. That's where it's going to be. I am promising you that right now. You will be a 2-win ball club this time next year if Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, and Brian Callahan and Will Levis return. You will be a 2-3-win ball club. 615-737-1025. Speaking of Levis, he was kind of one of the big topics yesterday. We'll get to him next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Titans Monday. Another embarrassing Titans loss. 3 more games to go, folks. 3 more games to go, and then the moment of truth. Is Amy hitting the reset button, or is she not? And guys, I do not know. I remember last year, the 2023 season, when the Titans went to London and got smoked by the Ravens, and I thought to myself, how are we going to get through a season where the team stinks? Because every season for like 7 seasons before that, the Titans season came down to either the last game of the year or the second to last game of the year. So I had gotten accustomed to this time of the year, sitting and doing discussions about, well, you know, hey, they beat Cincinnati, but where would they rank against Buffalo after Buffalo's performance against Detroit yesterday? And I'm like, how do I talk about a bad team? But there was all the Vrabel and Carthon drama that they promised wasn't happening. Surprise, surprise. And that got us through last year. I don't know, you know, if she doesn't hit the reset button, I don't know how we get through an entire offseason of empty promises that this time you guys know are empty. Like when the Titans make a trade for Carson Wentz to be the starting quarterback, and they say, oh, well, we're going to fix Carson Wentz. I don't even think you guys will believe it. So if she doesn't hit the reset button, I don't know I don't know how we're going to get through all of this. But now there's the Levis part of this. And to me, this is a small part of the equation, but it is not the root issue with the Titans, but it is still worth discussing. So let me just say this. Will Levis is done. It's over. He might start the last 3 games. He might not. Who knows? Brian Callahan wouldn't commit to it today, which I thought was pretty eye-opening. The fact that, again, Levis was our guy the whole time, and a big reason why I took this job, and now it's like, I don't know who will start. By the way, he does know. He just hasn't talked to everybody who needs to be talked to tell them that Mason Rudolph's probably going to start. But who cares? Those are semantics. It's over. Last week after Jacksonville, I declared that I had seen all I needed to see, and that I could tell you that with certainty, again, not 100% because nothing's 100%, but that I could tell you with certainty that I did not believe Will Levis was going to be a franchise quarterback. Then he follows up his 6-point Jacksonville performance with that yesterday. It's over. Now it's just 3 more games, and then the Titans will be one of the 9 teams, excuse me, one of the 9 teams that goes into the abyss this year looking for a quarterback. The Raiders and Giants are going to take guys in the first round who probably aren't good enough for the number 1 overall pick, but it is what it is. Some team is going to end up with Sam Darnold. Maybe it's Minnesota again. I don't know. But then there's the Titans. And there'll be about 4 or 5 other teams that'll be trying to figure it out. And all I heard this offseason was, this is the year that we need to know about Will Levis. We need to see what they have in Will Levis. Well, now we know. And yet I still hear people that aren't willing to commit that Levis is not going to be the quarterback next year. In fact, I don't even think Levis is going to be on the team next season. I heard Koharski today say, people need to assume Levis is going to be on the team next year. Why would Levis not be on the team next year? Why is Kenny Pickett not on the Steelers this year? Why is Mac Jones not on the Patriots? Why is Justin Fields not on the Bears? Because once you move on, you move on. In the middle of the season, you bench somebody, that's one thing. But once you move on in the offseason, you trade for a 5th-round pick and you move on. That's what everybody else did. And that's what's going to happen here. Because once again, this was the offseason that we needed to know what we had in Will Levis. Well, now we know. I kept saying last year, I said, this could go one of 2 ways. This could go from the standpoint that, hey, we're going to give it a shot with Levis, and he's our guy. Jalen Hurts was that way in 2022. We're going to give it a shot. Jalen Hurts gets us to the playoffs. Jalen Hurts gets us to the Super Bowl. He's our guy. We're going to give it a shot. Geno Smith gets Seattle to the playoffs. He's our guy. But for every Geno Smith or for every Jalen Hurts, for every one of those quarterbacks, there's like 9 other examples of, remember when the Atlanta Falcons tried to roll it with Desmond Ridder last year? It cost Arthur Smith his job. This is how the league works. You take a quarterback, you give him a shot, and if the guy throws 3 interceptions in 4 passes, he's probably not your answer. He's probably not Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, or Lamar. It is what it is. People will say, but Jared, who out there is better than Will Levis? Well, I can tell you right now, Ryan Tannehill is sitting on his couch in Green Hills, and he's better than Will Levis right now. So I've already given you somebody who is better than Will Levis, who, again, we're talking about who are the free agents going to be next year and what teams are going to need quarterbacks, and are these quarterbacks in the draft? And he goes, Jared, tell me, who out there? Is there anybody out there that Ryan Tannehill's better? He's available today. He could play quarterback next week. Mac Jones will be a free agent. He outplayed him last week in the game here at Nissan Stadium, and he outplayed him yesterday in a loss to the Jets. Mac Jones is better than Will Levis. Can I find a guy like Joe Burrow this offseason that played on the other team yesterday? Probably not. But I can find a guy who's better than Will Levis. So, again, we now know. I'm glad that Levis revealed his true colors to us this season. It was a rocky ride. I think he cares. I think he wants to be a good football player. I think he's got a winner's mentality. All of these things. But the thing about sports is, can you do it or can you not do it? He can't do it. He stinks. And now it's over. So do whatever you want the last 3 games. Play him, don't play him. I don't care. A lot of bums start the end of season meaningless games. But as far as is Levis going to be the quarterback going forward, it's over. And if it wasn't over, they wouldn't have benched him. How many mind-numbing mistakes did Will Levis make this year where Brian Callahan just shrugged his shoulders and the thought of taking him out never crossed anybody's mind? He flicks the ball to the Chicago Bears, and they didn't think about taking him out. The next week, after the coach publicly chided him for that, he rolled the ball on the ground to the Green Bay Packers, and the coach didn't think about taking him out. Excuse me, the Jets. The next week, they played the Green Bay Packers, and he threw the ball to a corner who was standing right there for a pick six, his second of 4 pick sixes this year, and the coach didn't think about taking him out. Remember Brian Callahan's response after the Jair Alexander pick six? Hey, that's an all-pro corner making an all-pro play. No, it's not. He just jumped the route and ran it back for a touchdown. Not anymore. Because, again, it's over. There are plenty of people out there that are better than Will Levis. There are plenty of backup quarterbacks that can take care of the football better than Will Levis. It's simple. This is easy. And again, I don't think this is the big issue with the Titans. I don't think getting rid of Will Levis is going to cure the problems that you have, the same way getting rid of John Robinson didn't cure your problems, and getting rid of Mike Vrabel didn't cure your problems. Getting rid of Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill didn't cure your problems. But as far as Levis being the solution, yeah, that's officially over. For me, it was officially over last week. For them, and what should be for everybody else, it is officially over now. There are plenty of people who are out there who are better than Will Levis. Starting with a guy who's sitting on his couch, probably not eating bonbons, but if he wanted to eat bonbons, he has plenty of money to eat bonbons, and flying his plane in Ryan Tannehill. That's just it. That's just reality. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Again, you can make a case for Levis if you want. Paul's like, oh, he'll be on the team next year. I'm like, these guys never stay on the team. Guy gets a shot as a starter, fails, and stays with the team. When does that happen? Josh Rosen didn't stay with Arizona after they drafted Kyler Murray. Desmond Ridder didn't stay with the Falcons after he failed last year. Kenny Pickett didn't stay with the Steelers. Once that guy gets demoted on out there, he doesn't come back. Levis will not be on this football team next year. And if Brian Callahan had any thought that was his franchise quarterback, he wouldn't have pulled him yesterday. Didn't pull him against the Bears, didn't pull him against the Jets, didn't pull him against the Packers, didn't pull him at any of these 6 points against the Jags, but he pulled him yesterday. There is no bullpen in the NFL. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Now the bigger question when it comes to Levis. Why would you let the guys that picked Levis pick the next guy? Stillman and Company, 1025 again.
Levis with time to the sideline, intercepted. Cam Taylor-Britt with the pick.
First, well, could you maybe walk us through on the first pick, who you were going for and what happened on that one?
Tyler's, he's working his sail route. He gets kind of jammed, didn't get as much depth, and the guy on Nick was able to fall off of him and get underneath the window. It's man coverage. I'm just trying to see the separation in Tyler and his man. He doesn't get quite his depth, and that allowed the corner to be able to fall off of Nick, which I didn't feel. So, yeah, just got to be better, like I said, across the board.
I am so tired of those. Levis gets asked, what happened on that one, Will? It's like, yeah, on that one, I saw this defensive back, and then the guy came out, and then every interception, there's like some grand explanation that's like, no. Here's what the one that he threw to that guy's ass cheeks in Miami on Monday Night Football. Here's what happened on that one, Jerry. You don't understand. Then I watch all these other quarterbacks, and they may throw an interception like that. Lamar Jackson, that first interception that Levis threw yesterday, Lamar Jackson threw last year to the Titans when Sean Murphy Bunting caught a pass. It happens. But with Levis, it happens like 7 times over 2 games. Enough's enough. Now, let me say this on the Levis front. Because, again, as the old man used to say, once you make that change, there's no going back. And people will tell me, but Jared, the Colts have made the change and they've gone back. And the Panthers have made the change and they've gone back. Panthers are on the clock and Shedeur Sanders is there. You think they're not taking him? Once you make that change, that's like breaking up with your significant other. Now, I don't know about you guys. Some people break up, they get back together, they live happily ever after, and it's fine. But once that happens, you can't unring that bell. And for the person that got broken up with and then got back to, it will be on their minds every single second of every single day after that. Oh my God, does my significant other really love me? And Levis will be the same way. Do they really believe in me? And the answer is nobody. It's not. Which takes me to this. Now that we know it's official and Levis isn't the quarterback, why would you let the guys who picked Will Levis pick your next quarterback? They picked this quarterback. But Jared, Will Levis was a 2nd-round pick, and the value of the pick, and blah, blah, blah. That's not how the NFL works, guys. Andy Reid invested 2 first-round picks and a 3rd-round pick in Patrick Mahomes. The Buffalo Bills traded their right tackle and 2 second-round picks and a 1st-round pick to move up to get Josh Allen. They don't take points off the board for Buffalo because of what they invested in Josh Allen. That's not how it works. The Patriots, the 49ers with Brock Purdy and Tom Brady, you don't get bonus points because you invested less in finding your quarterback. Again, that's not how it works. You pick a guy, he's your guy, period. It doesn't matter if you took him with the 1st pick or if you took him with the 5th-round pick. Arthur Smith got fired in Atlanta because Desmond Ridder sucks. And I think Arthur's a good coach. These guys picked Will Levis. And not only that, these guys were so stupid about it. And this is why they have no business running a football team. Because they liked a guard over Levis. So what happened was, they had Levis on the board, probably somewhere around 17 or 18. The owner sits in the draft room on the first night. All 32 teams, except for Green Bay, who doesn't have an owner, they all sit in the draft room. And they all see the board. And the owner sees Levis at 17 or 18 and says, well, if he's still there at 33, why not make a move to go get him? We liked him enough for him to be 17th. And that's where a real general manager that knows football, unlike these guys, would have sat back and said, whoa. We have him 17th, but we don't like him. We don't think he can do it. Again, you liked a guard more than you liked him. This is where you say, hey, this ain't my guy. We played the Rick Spielman cuts constantly leading up to the draft, talking about these quarterbacks because we knew the Titans. Whether it was Stroud or Richardson or Levis, or they had been involved in all of them. Hendon Hooker. And in all these instances, we kept playing the Rick Spielman cuts where he made it clear he didn't like Levis, didn't like his build, didn't like how he was yoked, didn't like all this stuff. Didn't like his college stats, didn't like the excuses that were getting made for him. He didn't like them. So when you're a general manager, you're on the board and it's the second round, you're about to pick a quarterback, like you have to know. I said the Monday after they drafted him, I said Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon are now tied to this kid. That's how the league works. You never hitch your quarterback. You never hitch your wagon to a quarterback that you don't love unless you give yourself a way to get out of it. And the Titans never gave themselves a way to get out of it the second they signed Mason Rudolph. I kept saying last year, bring Tannehill back. 1 year, $15 million, sit down with him and say, hey, you're going to be the backup. Are you okay with that? Now, I'm not sure Tannehill would have done that, but I would have tried. Because at this point in the year, Ryan Tannehill would be the quarterback. But you can't get out of it when you make Mason Rudolph the quarterback. And you can't get out of it when the owner is telling people we've got a good young quarterback who had won 2 games as a starter. But now I'm going to let the same guys that picked this guy that apparently didn't have the nuts to stand up to the owner to say, no, I not him. Now I'm going to let them pick the next quarterback of the Titans. If it's Sam Darnold, that's going to be a $200 million commitment. I'm going to let them do that so that the next guys inherit that problem. If it's a first-round pick, I'm going to let them evaluate this quarterback class, make that pick, which, again, the 6th overall pick, I think, comes with like a contract somewhere around $30 million. So I'm going to let them use the 6th overall pick on Jalen Milroe. And then bring in the next guy and tell the next guy, Jalen Milroe's your quarterback. When he didn't evaluate Jalen Milroe, he didn't draft Jalen Milroe, he might not even like Jalen Milroe. Why would I do that? Why would Amy bring back the guys to pick the next quarterback who picked this quarterback? They handpicked a coach for this quarterback. And it's obvious now that he's not the guy. Most guys don't get 2 quarterback picks. And the ones that do are usually the bad organizations that then fire the second guy or fire the guy after 1 year of the second guy. Phone lines are by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let's go to Lawrence, who has been waiting patiently and is up next on the program. Lawrence, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Appreciate you for having me on, Jared. I mean, at least the one thing that Rand Carthon did is he drafted the damn good running back in Devondre Sweat. That's the only good thing I can say.
Hey, let me tell you something. I'm not against giving him the ball Refrigerator Perry style.
Hey, I feel you, man. I feel you. It's just a shame that this is what they've wasted the draft capital on, using a pick on Will Levis when we could have used it on a different quarterback that might have been better.
Well, so to me, I mean, the wasted draft capital, and I keep bringing this up, and I'm glad you brought up Devondre Sweat. Thank you for your call, Lawrence. Because, by the way, watching Devondre Sweat run with the ball yesterday was by far the most exciting part of the game yesterday. And it reminded me of the movie, the Keanu Reeves movie from when I was a kid, The Replacements, where they had the big fat sumo wrestler, and he ran back a touchdown, and he started doing the Nanda-ska! And that's what I thought of yesterday watching Sweat. By the way, Ian, we got to get Sweat on John Madden football, that little running back drill where you run through the cones. Because if he cuts that upfield, he may still be running.
I don't know, maybe.
And you know what John Madden used to say?
What's that?
Gotta love a fat guy touchdown. You know why?
Why?
Because first you get a fat guy spike, then you get a fat guy dance. And I was wanting a fat guy spike.
I do love it.
And I want a fat guy dance from Sweat.
I do love a heavy guy spike for sure.
I mean, look,
the Lions got
sacking
one.
The quarterback.
Saw the Lions got one. And I guess
so
the Lions offensive tackle caught a touchdown, and then the Bengals defensive tackle or defensive lineman caught a touchdown, of course.
Yeah, he's out for the season now because they decided to run that bull crap, but That's the new thing that's in vogue right now is like, let's take a big fat player from somewhere else and score a touchdown. Yay. I'm not talking about that. I don't want the manufactured fat guy touchdown. I want the fat guy picking the ball up and, the crisp fumble. He could go all
Rumbling,
the
stumbling, bumbling, that kind of thing.
Yes. Tavondre never gets a sack because he's got a sweat, something like that from Chris Berman. But instead, no, he decided to run to the sidelines, got pushed out. But let me say this about the draft capital. The problem with the Titans and the draft capital is how they don't understand how it works. And I understand when the fans don't understand how it works because you're a fan and you probably have a regular job. It's like a friend of mine that I went to high school with, her dad, who I've known forever, is a neurosurgeon. And I saw him at a Predators game last year. He's a big fan of the show. He's a great guy. I've known him since I was like 9. And he said to me last year at a Preds game, he goes, the fact that you know what you know impresses me so much. And I said to him, I go, that's because that's my job. He said, I know, but I said, no. You're thinking about how much the average person knows about these kind of things, but they have real jobs. Like at 9:30 in the morning on a Thursday, you're thinking about neurology. I'm thinking about Alexander Carrier's contract. Like that's the difference. Like that's my job. And so the fans don't totally understand this draft capital stuff, but I do. And the Titans don't. And that's the part that is incredibly shocking. Like the Traylon Burks, A.J. Brown thing, it was the kind of decision that gets somebody fired. It is a huge risk. You are taking the bird in the hand and you are trying to go for the younger, cheaper, maybe better model. The Vikings did it when they traded Stephon Diggs and they drafted Justin Jefferson. But it doesn't always work like that. But at least I understand the process. The 18th overall pick for a first-round receiver is not a bad use of a pick. A guard with the 11th overall pick, that is bad use of a pick. That is not understanding the draft capital. I don't even think Levis, again, he's a bust, but I don't think that's a bad pick to take a quarterback who's got first-round talent with the 33rd pick in a draft. The running back on a team with Derrick Henry, and then after Derrick Henry leaves, you still have to spend $8 million on the next running back in the top 100? That's a bad pick. But Jared, did you see Spears run with the ball in garbage time yesterday? Yeah, I also watched Blake Bortles play in garbage time too. I think he made the Hall of Fame because of it. That's where they're missing on the draft. You have a right tackle? You're taking a running back? They didn't have any receivers, and they're taking a running back? And then this year, again, I got no problem with the tackle with the 7th pick. Granted, I would have taken Bowers, and I would have looked like a genius, but that's different. Fine, take the tackle. A tackle that can start right away is worth the 7th pick. Now, can he play left tackle? That's a different story that clearly is an issue right now as far as the Titans are concerned. But then a run-stuffing DT at 38 who can't sack the quarterback? He hit Joe Burrow, like literally had Joe Burrow and let him go yesterday. But Jared, he's great against the run. Okay, get that in the 4th round. Get that 38. They don't understand. Again, right tackle is another example of how the Titans the people that are in charge of the football team, do not know how to put together a football team. Like, that's what we're talking about. And so, as far as the Titans are concerned, you talk about the wasted draft capital, Levis is the least of my concerns. But everything else is equally as alarming. And again, this is why I don't understand how you bring these guys back. 615-737-1025 is our phone number on the program, 615-737-1025. Plus, I keep hearing this. It just drives me insane as the only justification for us having to live through another year of this horrid football. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company at 1025 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Talk to the fine folks over at Hiller today, by the way. They sent their congratulations, and I really did appreciate it. Hiller's Cash for the Holidays promotion is back, and they're giving away cash for the holidays with select purchases. Get a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems or a new whole home generator, or get a $250 Visa gift card when you buy a new tankless water heater. These deals are only available until the end of the year, so schedule today by visiting happyhiller.com. I love them. Again, they're great friends, but they're also great at what they do. And they take fabulous care of my home, and I promise you they'll do the exact same for you. Take advantage of Hiller's $99 drain cleaning this month as well. There's no better time to take care of your home before the holiday guests arrive. And boy, did we have a holiday guest arrive last week. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds of Falls and Vady. Hiller, call that fish truck today.
At this moment that you make this change and set a new course for the Tennessee Titans, what does Amy Adams Strunk want Titans fans to know at this time?
I have high expectations, and I'll never apologize for that. And these fans deserve a great team, and they deserve a championship brought to the city. And that's what we're going to work towards. And I'm prepared to make the hard decisions to hopefully get us there sooner. This team has a bright future. We have Rand. We have a promising young quarterback. I mean, the sky's the limit. We've got cap space. We've got a great draft position. Things are bright for the Titans. I'm really very, very optimistic. And I'd like to thank the fans for hanging with us this year. Our season was unacceptable, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there sooner rather than later.
Last season was unacceptable. What does that make this season? By the way, I did see last week I was off from Wednesday on, so I did not get to touch on Gentry Estes' column. Ian, I'm sure you read Gentry's column in the Tennessean last week.
I didn't read the whole thing, but off pieces here and there. Got the gist of it. Yeah.
He nuked Amy Adams Strunk. I was like, damn. I'm sitting there in the hospital reading it. I'm like, damn. And he was throwing everything she said back against her and things rants. It was great. And it was honest. And it was what we needed to hear. So there's a one thing that just rides up my behind. Like I would imagine, I've never worn a thong, but I would imagine if I did, this is what it would feel like.
You once guaranteed something involving a thong, though.
Yeah, I wore a bikini.
Oh, okay.
Didn't go for the full thong.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I don't think I could. I don't know. I don't think it looked very good in one. But this rides up my rear end. Chris Sanders said it on the program a couple weeks ago, and he's not the only one that says that the Titans owe so-and-so one more year. Or it's not so-and-so's fault. You owe Rand Carthon another year. They owe Brian Callahan another year. Let me just nip this in the bud right away. You don't owe anybody anything. They don't owe anybody anything except for the money that they've promised to pay these guys. And I've heard it all year. It's not Rand Carthon's fault, Jared. It's not Brian Callahan's fault. It's not. Here's the deal, folks. This is the NFL, and you do not owe a coach or a GM anything that they have not earned. What have Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon, and let's throw Chad Brinker in here, and Will Levis, what have they ever earned in the NFL? Ever. Let's say I give Rand Carthon another year because you all tell me that I owe another year to Rand Carthon. What do I get if the results are the same? Which I expect them to be. Does he owe us anything? Do the fans get a refund on their PSLs because Rand Carthon owes the fans a good football team, even though I think he is completely incapable of delivering one? So where did this come from? You owe it to so-and-so. I don't. If you didn't owe it to Mike Vrabel, who was a former coach of the year, to give him more time to fix the team, why do you owe Brian Callahan anything? Why do you owe Rand Carthon anything? Well, it's not Rand Carthon's fault. Well, he's not doing anything to make it better. Let me ask this question. Let's use another team. Let's use the Broncos as an example. Did the Broncos owe Nathaniel Hackett an entire season? Because they fired him in the middle of the first year. And they didn't regret it, did they? They realized this guy's a dope. He's setting our team back. Let's go get a real coach in here. Did they owe Russell Wilson a third year? They traded 2 first-round draft picks, 2 second-round draft picks, a tight end who they took in the first round, a DT, and a backup quarterback for Russell Wilson. They gave him $1 gazillion, and they are paying him $39 million this year to play for the Steelers. Because that's what they owe Russell, because they agreed to pay it. But could you imagine if the Denver Broncos said, no, we owe it to Nathaniel Hackett to give Nathaniel Hackett another year instead of hiring Sean Payton? Could you imagine if the Denver Broncos said, no, we owe Russell Wilson another year even though Sean Payton doesn't want to coach him and we're not going to draft Bo Nix? You think the Broncos would be in the playoffs? So stop with this, I owe Rand Carthon, or you owe Rand Carthon, or they owe Brian Callahan, or that's not how this league works. And even if it was how this league worked, they're not holding up their end of the bargain. Brian Callahan said Will Levis was a big part of why he took the job, and he's already benched him. Rand Carthon was hired to build a team with Mike Vrabel. And he got a promotion after winning 6 games his first year, and then didn't bring back Derrick Henry. So, again, I don't get this. We don't owe Brian Callahan anything. That's the NFL. Mike Mularkey made the playoffs and won a playoff game, and he didn't get to keep his job. And let me just say this. If they, and I'm dead serious, if they bring Rand Carthon back, I will bring up every single day the fact that Mike Mularkey won a playoff game and that wasn't good enough. But what's inevitably going to be 9 or 10 wins over 2 years is. And how fakakta that is. It's a joke. What it tells me is that the Titans operate more on feeling than they do on reality. And that's a problem. Matt from Nashville texts in and says, love how Amy acknowledged that we were in a great situation asset-wise last season and decided to fire an established head coach and hand it over to a first-time head coach. Again, I don't even think it's about the coach. I mean, I think the problem is the GM. She decided to, hey, Rand, your job is to come work with Mike Vrabel. Yes, ma'am. Rand couldn't work with Mike Vrabel or work effectively with Mike Vrabel. So it's like, all right, Rand, here's more responsibility for you. He does worse, and now people are telling me I owe another life of my year to this team. I don't know, man. I'll just say this, like, if she brings them back, I mean, it's going to be, because like when the first time Rand has one of these ball didn't bounce our way press conferences, like it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. Oh my God. If he keeps his job, because they're going to lose next week to Indy, and they're definitely going to lose to Houston. They're not going to beat Houston. Trust me. You know, once you beat Houston the first time, that rules out you beating Houston the second time. So their only shot to win a game this season is to beat Jacksonville in the last game of the year. And even then, I'm not sure they're going to do it. But maybe
second
they
to
do.
last. Houston's last.
Houston's last? Really?
Yep. At Indy, at Jacksonville, home against Houston.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. Well, they're not going to beat Houston. So at Jacksonville is the only shot they have of winning another game. And if they win 4 games this year, and Rand gets up there and says the ball didn't bounce their way, I don't know how he's going to hold. I do not know how he is going to be able to hold a press conference where he just does not get drugged to the ground. And considering that Rand clearly doesn't have the scruples to be able to stand up in front of people right now and to take responsibility or maybe assuage their concerns, I kind of feel like that's going to be an all-timer of a press conference and an all-time bad one, which I'm kind of excited for if they bring him back. I mean, it's just, oof. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. If you want to weigh in, we'll get back into your phones at 615-737-1025. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
in the past about not wanting to be reactionary with benchings. What made this specific situation something where you felt like it needed to happen?
Just needed some momentum. We needed something to spark us a bit. And, we had 3 turnovers again in a really tight amount of time, and that gave them some points. And, they had another one we got a little bit lucky on at the ball, didn't go back the other way for 6 points again. So just felt like we needed something. And again, not everything's on the quarterback, but he's the one that's going to take the most heat when those decisions happen. And so felt like we just needed something to spark us out of that part. We played really well early, and then the turnovers in succession there really put us in a tough spot. And in a game where I thought it was going to be tight at halftime, it ended up not being that way because we gave them opportunities that that they shouldn't have had. And again, sometimes those things happen. I've been a part of those before, where just a bad series that just kind of spiraled on them, and you need to take a seat for a little bit and let somebody else do it.
That doesn't exist. The idea of, hey, I just thought I needed to go to the bullpen. In fact, I remember a game years ago. The Titans were playing the Steelers. I think it was the second game of the year. And they were getting beat, and Vince Young got pulled for Kerry Collins, and Kerry Collins almost let him back. And after the game, Mike Keith asked Jeff Fisher, he said, Coach, why'd you make the move? And he said, Mike, I just felt like I had to go to the bullpen today. And I remember sitting in the car. I was probably 20 years old at the time. And I was sitting in the car, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. By the way, the Steelers ran a reverse on the opening kickoff to a 6th-round rookie named Antonio Brown, who took it to the house. I don't know if you guys remember that. But I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense. And the whole next week was drama city about Vince Young missed the meetings. And then it came out that Vince Young missed the meetings, but it was excused because he was taking Steve McNair's kid to the Father's Day brunch or whatever. And it turned into this whole war between Fisher and Young. Because again, in the NFL, you do not take the quarterback out. You don't do it. You don't blame the quarterback. You don't say that the quarterback had a bad. You don't do those things unless you've given up. And it feels to me like maybe, just maybe, he's given up. One texter into the text line says, the Titans are coached when Callahan said today that he can see improvement behind closed doors, but as fans, we can't because we aren't with them every day. Some people ask me things about, what would Floyd say? Last week when Bill Belichick got the job at North Carolina, people said to me, Porth texted me and Caroline texted me, and people were like, what do you think Floyd would say about Bill Belichick taking the North Carolina job? And I've always said I don't like to say what Floyd would have said because I don't know. And the number one thing that man always wanted was for me to never put words in his mouth. But every now and then I hear something and I just think, it reminded me of when the Titans tried to play Aaron Brewer at left guard in 2022. And I said, he's 270 pounds. But Jared, he's got great quickness to be able to get out and pull on the technique and every time somebody'd say something like that to me, I just think, every time. Brian Callahan, and again, this is not the first time that he's referenced God, I see it every day. We're getting better and we're doing the right things behind closed doors. And and again, I don't want to put words in the old man's mouth. But Ian, if you were to say to the old man, hey, Floyd, we're really improving as a ball club. You just don't see it on Sundays when we play in any of the games. Don't you think he'd give you a
Sounds about right, yeah.
I mean, again, I told the story last week. I got dumped one day. I asked Floyd, by the way, via text message. I got broken up with on a text message one day, and I'm all upset about it during a break. And again, I kind of kept it to myself, but I just said to him, I was like, hey, when you got something bad in your personal life, what did you do, to be able to separate it, to focus on what you were? He said, well, I asked myself, are you sad now, unhappy now, lose 3 in a row, then tell me how you feel. And I was like, got it. That's how the NFL works. So this idea of like, hey, the super secret improvement that you don't see, bull crap. I mean, it's just like today when Callahan was trying to argue that he didn't bench Levis. He just felt like he needed to sit down. Who's the quarterback this week? Don't know yet. Okay. Because that wasn't what we were talking about week 3 when he was stinking it up. I hate to say it, but WB in Thompson Station says if Rand Carthon doesn't have the marbles to stand up in front of the press in Nashville, and that means very friendly people, no wonder he's getting smoked in trades and negotiations. He is a very bad GM, and he is another first-timer. So I don't have a big problem with hiring first-time guys. I have a problem with hiring the wrong first-time guys. Sean McVay was a first-time guy. Don't have a problem with that. Just the wrong first-time guy. Here's my thing about Rand and his aversion to the press. If I was in his shoes, I'd want to talk to the press. And I'm serious about that. This isn't like, I'm going to say that I'd want to talk to the press because I want Rand to talk to the press, because at this point, quite frankly, it makes no difference if Rand talks to the press. His team sucks. Everything he says is a train wreck anyways, whether it was the post-draft press conference where he got mad at the media for chastising the Spears pick, or whether it was the ball didn't bounce our way part 1 or ball didn't bounce our way part 2. But if I was Rand, I would want to speak to the press. Because when you're speaking to the press, you're really speaking to the fans. When a news reporter asks a question like, what are the challenges in facing Joe Burrow this week? They're doing it because they have 1:30 in the 6 o'clock news for a sportscast. So they're asking that so the coach can say, well, I'll tell you, Joe Burrow's a very good quarterback, and it's going to be a very tough game. Coming up, what head coach Brian Callahan had to say about facing Joe Burrow. That's what they do. They're talking to you on the news. Now they play the press conferences live. Kaharski hates it because he gets embarrassed when he asks a stupid question. But again, people listen to those things. You're talking to the fans. Rand Carthon has got to give the fans confidence in the fact that he can do the job. But if you never talk to the press, and when you do, it's a train wreck of, I can't show you my vision, I can't tell you why we fired the coach, and the ball didn't bounce our way, you're not really winning anybody over. And he got by last year because the narratives came out about how great Brian Callahan was and how great the vibes of the building were, and they signed some splashy free agents. That's not going to work this year because everybody lived through it last year. So if I was him, I'd want to grab the bull by the horns and try to set the narrative straight and try to give people confidence that I know what I'm doing. Again, Barry Trotz right now, he's the architect of one of the worst teams in the NHL. But it's not like you can hear Barry when he comes on the show and you hear him every week and it doesn't sound like, yeah, he's got his head dug in the sand. That's why if I were Rand Carthon or Chad Brinker, or I don't want these narratives coming out all the time, and me have no control over it. But again, they keep doing things their way and we keep seeing the results, although not the super secret results behind the closed doors that we don't get to see. 615-737-1025. Normally I don't do this. Normally I hear things and then I hear, well, so-and-so said this, so let's talk about it, but I disagree with this or that. Very rarely do I look at somebody on our station, not that we don't have great hosts, but I'd like to think that I'm the most creative of the hosts. But I heard Robbie Stanley say something today, and I'm just taking it. Because, boy, did it. I heard it, and I go, this is the best argument I've heard. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Titans Monday. Titans losers again to the Cincinnati Bengals. And I just keep saying to people, do you remember, and I say this as a Titan fan, do you remember when we used to win? Boy, it was nice. Titans don't win anymore. And for the foreseeable future, it doesn't feel like they're going to win a lot either. So, Ian, last week I put you on the spot. I put you on the hot seat, and I said, if you ran the Titans, would you bring Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, and Brian Callahan back? And you said.
One more season, yeah.
Okay. So this morning I was listening to Robbie and Rexroad, and Robbie Stanley asked what I think is the best question for the argument that is, Lord, please save us from these guys that don't know football that are running this team. He said, if I was Amy Adams Strunk and I sat down with Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan, and I asked them to explain to me what they've done well to keep their jobs, what would their answer be? Ian, you own the Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
You want to keep Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker.
I'd like to try not to fire them right away, yeah.
What have they done well enough to keep their jobs?
If they were to tell me that, what would they tell me?
Well, yeah, sure.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they would say as far as what they've done well enough. I don't know. Some of the picks haven't been completely awful.
Is there any, so for you right now, as somebody who wants to give them one more year, is there something they've done that stands out to you that says, this is why I want to keep them?
I mean, I don't know. Nothing in particular stands out. More so just the continuity and just trying to build something together and see how it goes.
The continuity of terribleness.
Well, maybe. If it's terrible again next year, we can make a move.
I heard that question from Robbie, and I thought, oh my God, that's the argument. And I don't even know if he was making the argument. You know, Robbie said he would fire him. Joe had said last week he wouldn't fire them, but I think deep down inside, Joe would fire him. He just doesn't want to say he'd fire him because he knows I want to fire him. But I digress. If you asked Brinker, Carthon, and Callahan, why should I keep you? What have you done? What would the answer be? Let's start with Rand and Brinker. These guys were hired in January of 2023 to build a team with Mike Vrabel. Did they do that? No. Did they do it well? No. So the job they were hired to do, they did not do. Strike one. The first draft they had, 11th overall, Peter Skoronsky out of Northwestern. Bust. 33 overall, Will Levis. Bust. Third round, Tajay Spears. Bust. That's not really a good sign. Free agency, Andre Dillard, Aaron Brewer, Arden Key, Azeez Al-Shaair, Sean Murphy Bunting. DeAndre Hopkins wasn't bad. But again, what would you get out of that? So again, the job you were hired to do, did you do it? Nope. Did you do it well? Nope. Have you drafted well? Again, bust. Their second draft, they took a right tackle with the 7th pick to play at left tackle. And the right tackle that they drafted with the 7th pick is struggling right now at left tackle. Now, maybe he ends up playing left tackle, but I think he's really a right tackle. And they picked a run-stuffing defensive tackle who's at the top of the second round, who, again, the big highlight was him rumbling, fumbling, bumbling, and stumbling down the field yesterday. And Jarvis Brownlee, a corner in the 5th round, who might be an NFL starter, might be an NFL backup. He's kind of on the fringe, though at least, I don't know, seems like a great guy off the field and was not afraid to talk that trash to Jamar Chase yesterday. I'm not sure that he really has anything that he can say to Jamar Chase, but at least he wasn't afraid to talk to trash. So that's the second draft, which again, this isn't like John Robinson's first draft, where Jack Conklin was an all-pro in year 1 and Kevin Byard led the NFL in interceptions in year 2. The top free agent signed by the Brinker-Carthon administration cost a future third-round pick and $25 million in cash and played what this year? 5 games? So what's the defense? What's the argument? I saw him make a comment in one of his rare media appearances, the Ball Didn't Bounce Our Way Part 2, with Nick Suss after the Detroit game, where he talked about trading DeAndre Hopkins and Ernest Jones to flip the roster. Can I ask you what team has gotten better by drafting in the 5th round? Well, we've got 3 picks this year to flip this roster. The Green Bay Packers 7th round pick. So pick number 240, that's going to make a difference. What have they done? Like what good, what bad, what's the defense? They signed Tony Pollard. He's not that bad. Who'd he replace? Oh, the best running back in the league. Then you go to Brian Callahan. Again, what's your defense of what's happened this year? Brian Callahan was brought in to develop the quarterback. Did you do it? Nope. Benched him yesterday. They entered yesterday, this week, because this week's not technically over. They entered this week ranked 28th in offense. They're worse than they were under Mike Vrabel. You didn't come in to take the job to get worse. Again, I asked the question, what's the defense? And this is where the rubber meets the road, because again, Kaharski has said that he was sniffing around, and what he's heard is that the people inside the building do not expect Amy Adams Strunk to fire Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, Chad Brinker, and that group. And yet at the same time, I'm like, okay, so if they don't fire these guys, at the end of the season, they have to have a press conference. And while I don't think, and I could be wrong about this, I don't think the general manager has to speak. I think just the head coach. It is impossible for me to envision Rand Carthon not having to get in front of a microphone if he's keeping his job. Now, the league may not mandate it, but I don't know how the Titans could possibly tell you, hey, buy tickets for next year and get excited about the football team in the future, but the general manager, we're not having a press conference, even though most people think he should be fired. But if he does have that press conference, the question has to be, what good have you done to keep the job? Is this team going to have a Pro Bowler this year? Is there any solution at quarterback? What have they done? And so, again, I got to give credit where credit is due, and that credit goes to Robbie. But Robbie said it perfectly today. When Robbie was like, again, what's the argument for keeping these guys? And I'm telling you, I'm convinced there's not really an argument.
Does the argument of why they hired Carthon still transition over a couple of years? Or like
to work with Mike Vrabel?
Well, it wasn't just to work with Vrabel, was it?
Well, I mean, I thought that the commandment was for the general manager,
they saw
Mike
something
Vrabel
that they
to
liked
work
in
hand in hand
Carthon
to build the Super Bowl
to hire. So I don't know. I just wonder if you liked what you saw in Carthon and Brinker to bring them in, maybe a year or two is enough to completely change your mind. But I don't know.
Again, I go back to Nathaniel Hackett. Did the Broncos make a mistake realizing halfway through that first year that this guy was a total loon? And I think the answer is no. Again, they realize, okay, this is a joke. Get him out of here and let's go get a real coach. So, the defense is, well, Robinson and Vrabel messed it up and I didn't do anything to make it better, but it's not my fault that it's bad. And it's not my fault that it's worse than it ever was under Robinson and Vrabel. It's hard for me to believe. 615-737-1025 on our program. If you want to weigh in on a Titans Monday, we'll get to your phones at 615-737-1025. Plus, I have to to ask a serious question about the expectations that everybody seems to talk about and then nobody ever wants to be accountable for, which we will get to. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company on a Titans Monday. Here on 1025 The Game, tune in to 93.3 Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU basketball. The Blue Raiders take on California Baptist in the WAC Conference USA Challenge at the Murphy Center. Tip-off at 6:30. Pregame is at 6 o'clock. Coverage also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. And be sure to get with us as we've teamed up right here at 1025 The Game and Cromwell Media with the Nashville Predators for the Coach for Kids benefiting the Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee. Donate a new or slightly used coat at the Game Studio and at the Ford Ice Center in Antioch, Bellevue, or Clarksville. Also this Friday, we will be live at the Ford Ice Center in Bellevue from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. 2 to 6 we'll be there, taking donations and giving away tickets and swag to an upcoming Preds home game.
After watching the tape, how many of the turnovers were more on Will? How much of it was a combination of things going on around him in the game?
Yeah, I mean, every interception has its own story. There's always things that you can reason or explain. At the end of the day, four total turnovers by him and 6 total is not going to allow you to win the game. And there's the blame is can be placed in different spots, but ultimately, as the quarterback, he's responsible for the football and where he puts it. And there's probably one really poor one, and then one that ball gets tipped in the air. Sometimes those things happen. So, blame wise, there's enough to go around, and he certainly shares it.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan. He didn't want to say, hey, Will Levis sucked yesterday, even after watching the film. But he also, hey, blame wise, there's enough to go around. Starting with him. Well, again, who's the one that said, the big reason why I took the job was because of Will Levis? Yeah, I thought so.
They all say that.
So, again, that's why, again, when it comes to Callahan, I don't care if you fire Callahan or not. I don't. What I've said from the jump is I'd fire Rand Carthon, I'd fire Chad Brinker, I'd move Burke Nihill as far away from anything that has anything to do with the actual football as humanly possible. And I would let Rick Spielman, Mark Dominic, the Thomas Dimitrov, one of those guys run the team, period. And decide what you want to do with Callahan. Do you want to keep him? Fine. You want to get rid of him? Don't care. Up to you. But again, this idea that my words, everything I said doesn't mean anything is not fair. You got in front of everybody. You told everybody this is what to expect, and the exact opposite has happened. And now you're trying to tell me you should keep your job. So here's the question that I have when it comes to standards and reality. See, I hate people that act on impulse. I asked my therapist about this one time. I said, why do I hate people that act impulsively? Why? Now, I have anxiety to the point sometimes where I cannot make a decision. And he told me, he said, because you associate people that act impulsively as a risk. If you're around somebody that's going to do something crazy, it's like, oh, no, I don't want to be a part of that. And so when it comes to the Titans and the firings and the hirings and the everything else, I try to remove the emotion from it. And I try to look at these things objectively. And I only want to talk to people who also look at things objectively. Knowing that, is the coach doing a good job? There's going to be some subjectivity involved. But how did the bar, the expectations around here, how did they drop so far from Mike Vrabel was coach of the year last year and it's still not good enough? And John Robinson has won 2 straight division titles, been to the playoffs 3 years in a row, won 61% of his games, in first place, and it's not good enough to where a 10-point shellacking, which should have been more, but the guy couldn't hang on to the football, a 10-point shellacking at home by the hands of the horrible Bengals, who are not going to make the playoffs, who should fire their own coach, is now completely acceptable, and we should all understand it. And not only that, ask for another helping of it. How did the bar drop so low? And the defense is, every time Amy fires somebody, whether it's Malarkey, Robinson, Vrabel, again, Wisenhunt doesn't count because he had no success and he sucked. But anytime she fires somebody who's had at least a modicum of success, she backs it up by saying, well, even though they've done a good job, my goal here is the Lombardi Trophy. I'm telling you, right? You're not going to win a Lombardi Trophy with Rand Carthon. Can I guarantee that, Ian? Can we put that on the list?
You want to guarantee that? That seems a bit extreme.
Come on. I like saying, I guarantee Jared Stillman will never be president of the United States.
Yeah, I don't know if I can allow that one. Yeah.
Probably going to nail that one if I roll with it. But again, how did the bar drop so low? How did we go from Vrabel and Robinson aren't good enough when Vrabel's the coach of the year? Look, Vrabel's an a-hole. He didn't even somebody asked me today. They said, did you like Vrabel? I said, that's a very loaded question. Vrabel didn't like me. But again, how did we go from, hey, first place isn't good enough to, I know the guard they picked 11 sucks, but deal with it. Because that's where we are. By the way, another big penalty on Skoronski yesterday. I keep seeing things he can't do. I need to start seeing things he can do. Let's go to Lil, who's up next here on the program. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Lil, go ahead.
Hi. I want to know why they don't put Mason Rudolph in there and I won't say what I was going to call him. Take that other one out.
Hey, we're all friends here. Say it, Lil.
Pardon?
I said we're all friends. You can go ahead and say whatever you were going to say.
Put Butthole out the gate and don't let him back in. I'm
That's
talking about Levis.
I got it.
I think Mason Rudolph, if you pay attention to it when he's out there, there's a whole different feeling on that football team.
Yeah, Lil, I don't really know. Like, I paid attention when he played quarterback against the Patriots and they won in overtime, and the Patriots might be the worst team in the NFL. So it's not like I really felt this transcendent difference with him playing quarterback.
I think if the guy had the chance, I think he'd do a wonderful job.
Lil, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't mean to be personal. How old are you and how long have you been rooting for the Titans?
I'm 84.
And
I've been watching the Titans before they became a Titan.
Okay. My question for you is,
I would like to see Tannehill come back, but I don't think that's likely.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you remember when they switched to Tannehill in 2019?
Yeah.
See, to me, that was where you could feel the difference of the quarterback. I don't feel that with Mason Rudolph. And he's played enough for me to be able to feel something, and I don't feel that.
I just think if the guy had a chance, he would do some good work. And I think there is a difference in the way the team acts when he gets out there.
So I am going to respectfully, good call, Lil, and we appreciate it. I am going to respectfully disagree. I think this team sucks with Rudolph. I think this team sucks with Levis. I think this team sucks. And I think it sucks because the people putting it together don't know how to build a football team. That's why. I thought Gentry put it best in that column where he nuked ownership, talking about everybody wants to be the Lions. Well, guess what the Lions do? They draft good players. What do? You draft guards who suck. I do not think that Mason Rudolph at quarterback would make a difference. Any discernible difference. Like, again, you lost the Jaguars game by a thread. You beat the Patriots by a thread. Those teams are probably even. So maybe, again, a thread is the difference between Rudolph and Levis. And at this point, eliminated from the playoffs, 3 losses, everything's terrible. I don't even want to win any more games. Give me the 4th pick. Give me Travis Hunter, and let's go. Which they still probably won't get. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. More of the phones, of course, on the program. And something I heard on the Fox broadcast yesterday that I heard it and I'm like, this sounds so stupid. So stupid. And yet this is why the Titans, like the sunshine pumping Tennessee Titans, are who they are. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company on 102.5 The Game.
And Rand is a tremendous person, as far as an evaluator and the relationships he has around the league. And we really wanted to allow him to flourish in that role.
What's the expectation we have for the Titans? Are we winning it all this year?
If we can put it all together, I think we have a chance. And obviously, I believe in Will Levis. It's a large reason why I took the job is that I think he's capable of being a really good player.
Earlier this week, I had Jeff Simmons in the office and just kind of getting his assessment of what he thought. And he felt really good, about the line as a whole.
The AI was used to help the doctors identify cancer in patients. And I was just fascinated by this. And so I took what was a football problem and we put it in the context of AI. And one of the problems that we have in football is we spend a lot of money on players that don't pan out.
Of every draft room I've been in, this was probably the most accurate board that I've ever been a part of.
I feel like when guys show up here now, guys feel confident that they can be themselves and that they can operate how they know they best operate to perform as good as they can on Sunday.
As far as Treylon's role, he's going to play everything. We've told him that from the beginning. He's had a really good offseason. I'm excited about what he can bring for us. I meant when I said that the other day that I think he's going to have a role to play.
Will Levis be the Titans' era's first 4,000-yard passer? And right now, the fans are believers. 78% of them say yes, he will. 22% say no. I think it's a slam dunk.
Oh, come on, Ian. You say that you got a problem with the Corey Curtis cut
That's cold. That's uncalled for.
Slam dunk. An oldie but a goodie. The toxic positivity mix that we ran earlier this year. Slam dunk. Oh, God, I forgot about that. In fact, I'm texting Corey right now. I think he's probably – the news comes on at 4 now, right? It's like 4, 5, 6, and 10, if I'm not mistaken.
You're asking the wrong person.
Slam dunk for 4,000?
We had
Question mark.
when you were out last week, we had Corey on Friday, and Jake Lyman, who was filling in, brought it up when he brought it on. Well, we won't bring up your slam dunk 4,000 yards Will Levis thing here today on the show, Corey. And he's like, well, you just brought it up. It's funny.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's not even a slam dunk that he starts on Sunday, and Corey's the slam dunk. And again, that was the toxic positivity mix, the entire offseason of gaslighting, bullcrap, and again, best case scenarios. I mean, I love best case scenarios. There's no point. If you believe everything the Titans were saying this offseason, there is no point in having car insurance, life insurance, health insurance. You don't need it. Because everything, why would you need car insurance? You're not going to get in a wreck. By the way, get car insurance. Even if you don't ever use it, get it. You have to have it. It's against the law. But you see the point I'm making. And I'm so tired of the bull crap. I'm so tired of what I call the toxic positivity. Vrabel didn't talk like that. And this is an example I heard yesterday on the broadcast from the Fox broadcasters. And this is Kevin Kugler and Laura Oakman and Moose Johnson. I think Moose actually does a good job. But these guys, they're not making this up. So this was what they thought. This was after Levis got benched. Here's what they said the week of talking to Will Levis was like.
Well, and Laura, Will Levis was a confident quarterback when we talked with him earlier this week.
Well, this is going to set him back a little bit because we talked early in the season after a rough stretch, and he was working on making sure a dip in play didn't dip his confidence. He said a bad game or a bad stretch used to really wreck him. This week, he said that confidence had been growing so much, and not just in him, but of what the offense is capable of. Said, I've been seeing it and feeling so much better heading into this game.
I mean, I was like, wait a minute, what? What? I'm watching this game. The Titans are getting their butts kicked. Again, the Titans, I've seen so many Fakakta things this year that nothing would surprise me on the football field. Like, nothing would surprise me if a Titan player was running with the ball and a guy's butt suctioned the ball out and it got fumbled and the other team picked it up and scored a touchdown, and none of that would surprise me. But this idea of, and now we go down to the sideline with Laura Oakman. Laura, we talked to Will Levis this week. He was a very confident quarterback. Yes, he was, guys, because when we talked to him, he said this year he's nothing but confident, and I just cannot believe it. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, confident how? How could Will Levis have come into this game with confidence? Even last week, Barry Trotz and I were talking about the difference between confidence and positivity. Saying I can do it is positivity. Knowing you can do it is confidence. And those are two totally different things. Being positive is a good thing, but it is not the end-all be-all. Being confident makes things a lot easier. And again, when I hear the Fox broadcast say, hey, when it came to Levis, we thought we were talking to a really confident quarterback, that told me Levis was acting like a phony in the Fox meeting. Because how in the world could Will Levis have possibly had any confidence going into this game Sunday, coming off of a loss at home against the 32nd ranked defense where they scored 6 points and he missed two guys wide open for touchdowns? Like, I don't understand. I don't get it. Like, how could he have been confident? And again, the Fox broadcasters are like, this is shocking that he stinks so bad because he was so confident in our meeting. And that's the problem. It's all fake. It's all bull crap. It's all the cuts that we played in that toxic positivity mix. It's like, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's kind of fake. And that's why we love the NFL, because you can't fake your way to being great in sports. Either you are or you aren't. You can't lie about being good. We see the games. We see, again, everybody told us, Chad Brinker told us Rand Carthon is a great general manager. We've seen that. You have 3 wins this year. And yet, here's Will Levis talking to the Fox guys after scoring 6 points against the 32nd ranked defense and losing at home to Mac Jones. And these Fox guys are like, man, look at the bravado on that guy. Phony. And that's the problem with the team. And it ain't just Levis. It is top on down. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. Here on the program, Chris says, are we just going to ignore J.C. Latham? He leads the sacks. He leads the league in sacks given up at left tackle. And in the last 3 weeks, he has gotten Levis absolutely killed. Who can look downfield when you keep looking back to see if your left tackle has allowed somebody to come free? By the way, Ian, did I not say on Tuesday last week, I'm like, hey, we need to have a conversation about J.C. Latham because he has sucked.
I can't remember exactly, but we mentioned something about how he's had a rough couple of weeks and maybe a rookie wall or something.
Let me pull up the grid from Tuesday where I was yelling and screaming apparently a lot about the Predators and about the Titans, because I'm pretty sure I was like, here you go, 345. J.C. Latham has sucked for the last 3 games. Sucked! Exclamation point. His pass block grade, according to PFF, is 48.2. So these are the last 3 games, not including yesterday, because again, this grid was from the last show I did, which was last Tuesday. His PFF grade for the previous 3 games before yesterday was 48.2. 3 sacks allowed, 11 pressures, and got the quarterback hurt. What's happened? The league is figuring Latham out. So I'm not ignoring J.C. Latham. And I wasn't ignoring J.C. Latham last week. I'm worried J.C. Latham is not athletic enough for left tackle. That's what I believe. Again, we talked about this during the offseason of toxic positivity and bullcrap. When the Titans drafted a right tackle, a guy who, once again, Nick Saban thought was a right tackle, when they drafted him to play left tackle, and they said, oh no, Bill Callahan can do it. I'm like, but he's a right tackle. And I'll never forget when Taylor Lewan was negotiating a contract, and I believe this was 2018, and Lewan was negotiating a contract. And I said to Floyd, can't the Titans use Jack Conklin as leverage? They can say, okay, well, if Taylor doesn't take the contract that we want to give him, then we'll just trade him and put Jack Conklin at left tackle. Jack Conklin played left tackle at Michigan State. He was a 7th overall draft pick. And the old man looked at me and he goes, Jack is a right tackle. I said, but he played left tackle in college. He goes, I don't care. In the NFL, Jack is a right tackle. Jack has not ever played left tackle in the NFL. Jack Conklin is bigger than Taylor Lewan. We went over the top 3 or 5, after the draft, when I kept saying J.C. Latham is a right tackle because he's so big. And the bigger guy plays right tackle. The more athletic, skinnier guy plays left tackle. Now, every now and then, there's a guy like Trent Williams who is big and fat and athletic. But again, Trent Williams is the exception, not the rule. And it kept saying, well, let's look at the top 5 right tackles in the NFL and the top 5 left tackles. And the top 5 left tackles all checked in at about an average of 315 pounds. Latham, I think, was somewhere in the neighborhood, Ian, I want to say of 340, 345, 335,
Latham?
something like that. Yeah.
I want to say, 350.
Like I want to say like 346, I think was Latham's weight at the combine.
It was something
but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it was around. It was high for a left tackle.
And when we looked at the right tackles, the top right tackles, Penei Sewell, those guys were in the 335 range. I'm pretty sure he's a right tackle. And I saw Blake Bedingfield write up before the game at paulkaharski.com, the former Titan scout who convinced him to draft Derrick Henry. He wrote at paulkaharski.com that these last 4 games would be pivotal for the Titans to put Will Levis and put J.C. Latham in position where you're not babying them. And you're saying, okay, let's see if you can do it. Let's see if you can play quarterback. Well, we got our answer with Levis. But let's see if Latham can play left tackle.
It was 6'6", 342 at the combine.
Yeah, if not, move him back to right tackle. I think he's a right tackle. Like, I truly believe that J.C. Latham is a right tackle. But, Jared, Bill Callahan said, I know. Jeff from Hendersonville says, Nick Saban had him at right tackle and we moved him to left. I don't get it. Nick Saban played a true freshman at left tackle and kept J.C. Latham at right tackle. But the Titans, they know better than Nick Saban. One texter said, could have had Brock Bowers. On draft night, I flipped my phone over. Because I didn't want to get the picks tipped. Robbie Stanley said that when he saw Charles Robinson tip that the Chargers were taking Joe Alt, he immediately ran to the TV and turned on the draft night because he knew I was going to lose it. So I didn't want to get tipped off by any of the picks. I just wanted to see. I wanted to hear Goodell in live time. And, of course, we all know the reaction. I went crazy on both Alt and Latham. When I turned my phone over, I had a former head coach in the NFL. And I showed Derek and I showed Chris and I showed Trevor. I had a former head coach in the NFL text me who said, take the tight end. He's going to the Hall of Fame. This is not one of Rand's made-up general managers who after every pick texts him and tells him it's a great pick. This was a real former NFL coach who said, take the tight end. He's going to the Hall of Fame. And I told you guys, Mark Dominic, he was yelling it from the hills. He said if Bowers was there at 7, Mark Dominic said Stockton to Malone slam dunk, take him. Now, you'd still have a problem at tackle, but did you get the best player? You got your right tackle with the 7th pick, and you're playing him at left. But I still think Latham's got a lot of talent, so I'm not ready to write him off or anything like that. It's not like Skoronski, who just sucks. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. We'll get back into your phones. Plus, the one thing, I still think I saw some of yesterday that I liked, but you actually got kind of dealt a pretty decent hand and didn't take advantage of it. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
Ridley in motion on first down. Pollard lost the handle on it. Ball loose on the turf. Scooped up by the Bengals. And on the run goes Jordan Battle. Down the sideline. Battle breaks away from Rudolph and everybody else. It's a touchdown. Now, Battle did fumble it as he got right across the goal line, and it went back through the back of the end zone. But did he break the plane with possession? It looks like he did.
I just don't know why players do this at times. He lost that ball before. He was switching it into his other arm, and he lost that well before he got to the goal line.
No doubt about that. What a shot. From one hand to the other.
Number 27 lost the ball, possession of the ball, before it crossed the goal line. Therefore, the field is a touchback.
That yesterday was one of many Bengal screw-ups. And again, this is not Cincinnati radio, nor do I care about the long-term aspects of the Bengals, but I do love Joe Burrow. And I thought Joe Burrow yesterday had a couple of Joe Burrow-like plays, where he shows, I believe Joe Burrow is the mixture of John Elway and Joe Montana. When Coach Bob Shoop used to come on the show, I said that I thought that Joe Burrow reminded me of John Elway, and he said, I think there's a little of that, and I think there's a little of Joe Montana. And that is what I mean, he's just so. And Joe Burrow throws the stupidest interception at the beginning of the game. And then Joe Burrow fumbles the ball. And then the Bengals give away a touchdown. And you got a very generous pass interference call, and you still got housed. What does that tell you? Remember all the talk about Ran Carthon and the ball not bouncing your way? Yesterday, the ball did bounce your way. Joe Burrow has not thrown a first-quarter interception since the AFC Championship game 3 years ago. Joe Burrow turned the football over yesterday, threw the iPad down yesterday. I mean, Joe didn't even throw for 300 yards. Joe is a 340 yards a game guy. And yet, still never had a shot. What's that tell you about you? That you need the ball to bounce your way in order to beat the Patriots. But that when the ball does bounce your way, you still can't even compete with the Bengals, who aren't going to make the playoffs. Shouldn't that tell you where you sit? Now, again, about Joe Burrow, Cincinnati, please fire your coach. I think that guy is such a dope. And that touchdown yesterday where the guy dropped the ball. Now, I don't think it was like one of those, I'm already celebrating kind of things where I celebrated at the 1 yard line, but I still think it was equally as careless. That's the kind of stuff that is going to ruin the career of Joe Burrow. The Bengals have the number one sacker in the league, a generational wide receiver. Jamar Chase is so good. And Joe Burrow, again, John Elway meets Joe Montana, and they can only beat the Titans by 10 points. They're not going to make the playoffs. They lose all these games. Please fire the coach. And I said this on SiriusXM a couple weeks ago, and I stand by it. If I were the Bengals, I'd go get Mike Vrabel or Nick Saban. My number one choice would be Nick Saban. My number two choice would be Mike Vrabel. Because I think that Burrow with Vrabel would be like Tony Dungy going to Indianapolis with Peyton Manning. So I just wanted to get that off my chest while we continue to complain about the Titans. One texter says, I was in North Carolina for the Tennessee basketball game. Compared to the Jets and the Giants talk on the Fan, you, Jared Stillman, are mild on the Titans. Ian, you're from New York, and you know enough about WFAN. I feel like I'm right up there with everybody else. I feel like I'm critical about what needs to be critical, and I think I defend the team when I feel like the team needs defending. I don't think I got to be honest with you. I think I'm fair. Like, I think I'm legitimately fair. That if I think somebody plays well, I give them credit. I'm not doing this thing. Mel Kiper Jr., again, put the Jags loss because he's so in the pants of Will Levis. Mel Kiper Jr. put the loss to Jacksonville on Brian Callahan and said, I wish I had the cut because it's actually pretty funny. But he was like, I mean, people say like Will Levis lost the game to Jacksonville. He didn't lose that game. Brian Callahan lost that game by not kicking field goals. I'm like, no. If you were the coach, you wouldn't have kicked those field goals because you love Will Levis so much. You would think that Will Levis could get a 4th and 35. Mel Kiper loves Will Levis the way John Madden loved Brett Favre. And so, again, I think I'm fair. I think it's over with Levis. I think Carthon is a dope. I think Brinker's full of crap. And I think that Callahan is collateral damage and probably the wrong guy in the wrong spot at the wrong time. And I would not make a new general manager work with someone they didn't want to work with. And again, I think that's fair. I give the Titans credit when they do things I think are good. It's just most of the things I think they do are bad. And I hate to say it, in case you guys haven't seen the scoreboard this year, I'm right. Well, really, Ian's the one who's the most right. Expectation of 4 wins. LD says Joe Burrow's a mixture of Elway and Montana just without the championships. Yeah, again, because if Joe Montana had Zach Taylor as his coach and not Bill Walsh, I don't think he would have won all those titles either. That's why they need to get rid of the coach. And it took Elway a long time to win titles. Like, let's not act like Elway showed up and just started winning the Super Bowl. Elway was the guy who could always get to the Super Bowl and never win the Super Bowl until Elway got to the Super Bowl and won the 2 Super Bowls at the end. Remember when they held up the trophy at the end and Pat Bowlen, the late owner of the Broncos, said, "This one's for John," and everybody went crazy? And then when Pat Bowlen was in the Alzheimer's home at the end and still owned the team and Elway was the GM and they won and Elway got on TV and said, "This one's for Pat," that got me in my feels a little bit. Because they probably told Pat Bowlen at that point in time, he probably, was going down the Alzheimer's path. My grandfather died of Alzheimer's, so I know what it looks like. And so you can remember certain things. And they probably said, "Hey, we just won the Super Bowl, and there's John, and he's saying this one's for Pat." And for probably about 20 seconds, Pat Bowlen probably took that moment in. That is some special stuff. Ricky says the only person gone after this year is Levis. You're wrong about Rand Carthon. Here's my question to you, Ricky. Make the argument for why I'm wrong about Rand Carthon. Tell me what Rand Carthon is doing to make the Titans better. Give me a good argument. I'll read it on the air. Give me the best argument you've got, Ricky. And I will read it on the air, and I will let Ian pick and decide if this is a good argument or not. Why am I wrong about Rand Carthon? 615-737-1025 is our phone number on the program. We'll see if he texts back on that front at 615-737-1025. Coming up next, the sad part of our society is about to cross over like a Venn diagram with the Tennessee Titans. Will the Titans act the way I fear society is headed? Or will they be able to actually smell the coffee? We'll get to that coming up next. Let's give something away. Let's give away a 4-pack of tickets to the Music City Bowl, the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl game at Nissan Stadium on Monday, December 30th. Be caller 5 at 615-737-1025, and you're going to the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl. Good luck there. And this week's Nationals Best Deal is from Brewster's Real Ice Cream in Hendersonville. Actually sounds pretty good. Brewster's offers handcrafted cakes, pies, and ice cream flavors of peppermint Oreo, eggnog, and gingerbread man. Enjoy the magic of a homemade happiness this season. Visit theGameNashville.com/deals now and get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Titans Monday. 3 more Titans Mondays to get through, and then hopefully we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. I hope. But I don't know. In fact, I'm a little worried because, again, I just don't know. Koharski said today on the morning show that he was sniffing around and hears that the building is prepared for Amy Adams Strunk not to make mass firings at the end of the year. And that makes me worried. And here's the problem with our society today. I'm just going to tell it like it is. Facebook and Twitter and social media and everything else, cable news, it's all about affirmation. Now, it's never about information anymore. Sometimes people just don't want to hear realities that they don't like. We talk about it all the time. What if Legarius said, Jared, don't you wish that evil on us? Again, affirmation, what I want to hear, information, what's actually going on. If you watch CNBC, a channel dedicated to the stock market and the economy and numbers, you're watching information. If you watch MSNBC, you're watching affirmation. It affirms your beliefs. Yesterday, the Tennessee Titans football team gave you all the answers you would have ever needed to know about the state of the franchise. This is one of the worst teams in the NFL, if not the single worst team on all fronts. They can't beat bad teams like Jacksonville or Cincinnati. They can't beat Malik Willis. They got rocked by the good teams, Buffalo, the Chargers, Detroit. The Bears and Jets have already fired their coaches, and they beat the Titans this season. The information is there. Will Levis is not a franchise quarterback, and you know it. They know it too. Trust me. Joe Burrow could have thrown 10 interceptions on 10 straight passes yesterday, and the Bengals are not sticking him on the bench. Brian Callahan may end up being a good coach in the long run. I don't know. But his inability to see any of this coming when it has been screaming at him, and it was all offseason, OTAs, training camp, that's alarming at best. Will Levis had 1 rep in the 2-minute drill against the Seattle Seahawks in joint practices. It was an interception. And Callahan said, oh, it'll be fine. And then there's Ran Carthon, who took over a team that was literally a ball bounce or a ref's call away from a division title in 2022 and is now fielding one of the worst teams in the entire NFL. The draft picks outside of Jarvis Brownlee have all been underwhelming, and that includes J.C. Latham and Devondre Sweat. The quarterback that he chose, that he chastised the media for asking negative questions about the day they drafted him, is a bust. And this year's free agency bonanza, a waste of money. If you believe in information over affirmation, then I have to believe that you've gotten all you need to know from the Tennessee Titans in 2024. You know it's time to hit the reset button. That's if you believe in the information. Every week it's the same. And we've been through these toxic relationships before, right? It's funny. I remember talking to a therapist one time. And I said, what do we make of people that just constantly go back to these toxic relationships? Well, I know that so-and-so did this and cheated on me, but he says he loves me. If somebody's telling you, listen, this football team has told you all year, they're not any good. They have 3 wins. They beat the Texans in a divisional game where the Texans missed a 28-yard field goal. They beat Miami on their 3rd quarterback, and Miami stinks too, by the way. And they beat the Patriots, who might be as bad as you are, with a rookie quarterback at home in overtime. They've told you they're terrible. They've told you there's nothing good going on. Look at the young players. Tajay Spears has told you he's not a difference maker. Peter Skoronski has told you he's not any good. Will Levis has told you he's not a franchise quarterback. J.C. Latham, every week for the last 4 weeks, has told you he's a right tackle. Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
He's told you he sucks and is unreliable. So if you're looking for information, it's all in front of you. It's time to hit the reset button. It's time to start over. Start over at GM, start over at president of football operations, start over at coach if you want with the next GM, and start over at quarterback. The only people who don't think the Titans need change are the people who don't want to believe it. They want to cover their eyes and put their hands over their ears and say, la, 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 la. I'm not hearing the fact that we couldn't beat Jacksonville at home and scored 6 points. La, 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 la. People ask these questions on these shows and these texts and the phone calls, and it's like, is he the guy? But that's not the issue with the 2024 Tennessee Titans and the state of the franchise. It's what does the owner believe in? Does the owner believe in the information, which is telling you, you might be the worst team in the NFL. You might have the least amount of hope of any franchise out there. Jacksonville might be worse than you, but they've got a $55 million quarterback who's won a playoff game. You don't. New England might have as little hope as you have, but they've got Drake May at quarterback. You've got Mason Rudolph, a backup. You might have the least amount of hope of any team in the NFL. No good young players to build around. Your veteran free agents are all hurt. Other than a new stadium coming your way, which everybody gets a new stadium. Cleveland is getting a new stadium, and they're the worst run organization in the league. Where's the hope? So if Amy believes in the information, she'll make the change. Because I do believe in her heart that she's telling the truth when she says things like the fans deserve championships and she wants to bring a Lombardi to Nashville and she cares. I believe that. But if she's too caught up in the decisions that she made, Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel and Brian Callahan and Will Levis and John Robinson, if she's too caught up in those beliefs and she just wants them to be good, she'll listen to whoever says whatever she wants to hear, which is that it was all Vrabel's fault. It's all Robinson's fault. The ball didn't bounce their way. She'll believe it. So again, the question is, what do you believe in? Information or affirmation? Because the 2024 Tennessee Titans have told you week after week after week after week. They play a good team like the Commanders, they don't put up a fight. They play a bad team or a bad quarterback, they lose in a close game. What more do you need to see? 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And if Kaharski is right, and Amy is willing to show patience, there is one stunning reality that I can't get over, which we'll get to next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
I don't even know that Mason Rudolph helps you necessarily, gives you a better chance to win. I don't think Callahan's in trouble. I mean, obviously it would help him to win games in the eyes of management, in the eyes of Amy Adams Strunk, who's the people that matters. But I've been fishing around, and I get the sense that everybody expects Amy Adams Strunk to stick with the status quo and to be patient.
That was Paul Gawarski this morning on Robbie and Joe. So he said, I've done some fishing around, and everybody expects Amy Adams Strunk to be patient. Again, I'm not taking that as gospel, saying that Amy's not going to turn around and fire somebody, because she might. And last year, everybody except for me thought Vrabel was coming back. So let's keep that in mind. But again, if Paul's right and Amy's going to exercise patience, and in this case, I think the word patience is just masked for stupidity. But if she's going to mask patience or mask stupidity with patience, then that means no matter how you argue this, that Brian Callahan will be given grace that Mike Vrabel was not. Think about that. Mike Vrabel was not given the grace of, hey, that was a really bad season, but it's not your fault. We had injuries. We didn't do well at left tackle with the ball didn't bounce our way. You know, John Robinson messed up the draft for you, Mike. You know, it's all the last guy's fault. It's okay. You'll get it figured out. We're not going to be mad about your coaching staff. We're not going to. Again, we're talking about Mike Vrabel. I'm not the biggest Mike Vrabel fan in the world. But if you noticed who the Jets have been interviewing for their general manager positions, John Robinson got an interview with the Jets. Thomas Dimitrov got an interview today with the Jets. Ian, where do John Robinson and Thomas Dimitrov come from? Where do they know each other from?
The Patriots.
Doesn't it kind of sound like they're trying to hire a Vrabel-approved general manager? And again, I'm fine with firing Vrabel, but it had to be part of an entire house cleaning, not a promotion for Ran Carthon, who once again is going to be given grace that neither Mike Mularkey nor John Robinson were given. Mike Mularkey won and got fired. Ran Carthon is losing. And again, Paul's telling me that, oh no, hey, everybody brace for patience. Holy crap. Again, let's think about this. In order for Ran Carthon to meet what John Robinson did by winning 61% of his games, he'd have to win, I believe, 24 straight games in order to have a 61 winning percentage. That's never going to happen. But he's given grace that Robinson wasn't. Robinson was given a contract extension and fired less than a year into it, even though they were in first place. But Carthon can finish in last place and it's okay. Somebody help me understand this. Vrabel can win Coach of the Year, have a year beset by injuries, win 6 games while, they're figuring out quarterback with Levis and Tannehill, and he gets fired. Brian Callahan has a terrible year where he actually has stability at quarterback, and he keeps his job. Doesn't add up. Just think about that, which is absolutely crazy to me. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Kevin says, Jared, you always tell the right tackle story because you respect Floyd so much. I'm having a hard time understanding why the Titans think they know more than Nick Saban. If Saban thought that Latham was a right tackle, then he's a right tackle. Who the hell is Ran Carthon or Chad Brinker to tell him no, he's a left tackle? They are a lot more messed up than that, but it's the philosophy of ignorant people that have better players and the philosophy of these clowns that it doesn't take much reasoning or person to say, well, damn, Saban thinks he's a right tackle, so who am I to say different? It's the stupid stuff like this over and over and over. What they will tell you is that Bill Bill Callahan said he could play left tackle. But I remember the first time Bill met with the media, and everybody said, well, what makes you so sure J.C. Latham can play left tackle? And Bill said, well, I'm not sure until we put the pads on and get him out there. So my guess is they probably sat down with Bill and said, Bill, what do you think? And Bill probably said, I think he could do it, or at least we could try. And they probably said, Bill Callahan said. Again, same with PT. I remember right before the end of OTAs, they asked Bill Callahan about right tackle and about PT and Duncan and Bozo and everybody else they had out there. And Bill Callahan said, by the way, they released Leroy Watson last week after he played right tackle in the What's Going Down episode of That's My Mama. But again, they sat there and they said, to Bill Callahan before OTAs, what about right tackle? Bill's like, we won't know till we get the pads on. But again, then they say, well, Bill Callahan said, so that's their excuse. But I would agree. I'm going with Nick Saban. And Nick Saban thought he was a right tackle because he played him at right tackle. One time said, how much grace do you give Callahan for Levis's errors? Amy Adams Strunk could have said to Callahan that this is the year to find out about Levis. I mean, I guess I give Callahan grace from the fact that I'm not going to just put my foot down and say he can't coach the way I know Rand Carthon can't be a general manager and the way I know Chad Brinker's full of crap. I'm not going to put my foot down on Callahan like that. But I also am not going to have any sympathy if Callahan gets fired. And if I owned the team, there's a pretty good chance that Callahan would be getting fired. Because, again, the owner decides on the coach, I know. But in well-run organizations, the owner hires the person in charge of football and then lets them make decisions. The Titans have an owner who hires a general manager and then forces the general manager to work with Mike Mularkey. And instead of quote unquote forcing, they say, well, what do you think about Mike Mularkey? And any prospective general manager can say, I would love to work with him. And we saw how that became a mess. If I owned the team, Rand and Chad would be gone. And whoever comes in to take that job would be running the football operations. And I would say, it's up to you on Callahan. And most of the time, these guys want their own coach. And I wouldn't stand in the way. So when you ask me what kind of grace I'm willing to give you, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I mean, he might not be a bum. Callahan might be in a really, really bad spot. Now, I'm not encouraged by the fact that Callahan just is sunshine pumping and best case scenario over everything. And I think that Callahan probably cannot hire a coaching staff, and Colt Anderson is the example of that. But I'm not willing to put my foot down and say he can't coach. I can tell you right now, Rand Carthon cannot run a football team. And Chad Brinker is a snake oil salesman. Somebody actually texted in earlier. We played the toxic positivity mix. And Cody said, I'll say crap. Holy crap, that dude actually said the AI cancer curing thing. I thought Jared was joking about him the entire time. What the hell's going on around here? Oh, no, Cody. Au contraire, mon frere. That is real. One texter says, I'll be glad when the radio station hits the reset button because when you were out last week, it was the best radio at night on this station in 3 years. Well, we did hit the reset button as a radio station. It was kind of when we launched Jared and the GM in 2016. And considering that this fall is about to be the single best quarter for 102.5 the game, period, ever, like no disputing across the board, I'd say we don't need to hit the reset button. But again, that's just me. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number here on the program. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. Plus, one thing that I keep hearing a lot about that apparently I think is going to be a lot easier for everybody else to explain. Unfortunately, not good for you. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
under pressure again, and this time he'll go down. Oh, really? The ball pops out, and it's recovered by the Titans. Devondre Sweat rumbling up the sideline. The big man still on the run, and out of bounds at the 40-yard line.
It's outstanding. He has a tremendous stiff arm early in this return.
Devondre Sweat finally did something. Can't sack the quarterback. He can barely pressure the quarterback. But, boy, when he gets running with that ball, at least that's something. So there are a couple other items that I wanted to touch on that I find hilarious with the Titans. Because yesterday was another good day for Mike Vrabel, and yesterday was a very good day, apparently, for John Robinson. Adam Schefter reported yesterday morning John Robinson will interview for the Jets GM job. Again, I don't know if he's going to get it or not. If he does, I'll laugh so hard because all those people are like, if Robinson was so good, why can't he get another job? And it's like, because he wants to take Amy's money to shove it up the rear end for how he felt like he got screwed. And then there's Vrabel, who is 100% getting another job this cycle. And yesterday was a good day for Vrabel and a good day for Robinson. And here's why. Because whatever interview they go into, no matter which team, a question they don't seriously have to answer is what went wrong in Tennessee. It is inevitable that whenever you get a job and it's your second time up, they sit you down and they say, so what did you learn from your first experience? I talk about Mark Dominic all the time as a potential general manager candidate. I think Mark Dominic is incredibly bright. I had Mark Dominic on the show the day of the draft, and people were like, my God, this guy's a genius. And remember what Mark Dominic begged the Titans to do? Draft Brock Bowers. Said it was a slam dunk. Stockton to Malone. Not exactly Corey Curtis's slam dunk. This one is actually legit because Brock Bowers is probably the second or third best tight end in the NFL now. But if Mark Dominic was interviewing for the job, I'd have to ask, so what happened in Tampa Bay? What happened in Tampa Bay that, you guys didn't win a lot of games. You guys drafted Josh Freeman at quarterback. What happened? And I am genuinely curious. Because if you listen to Dominic on the radio, if you listen to Dominic, if you get to know him, the guy's a genius. So what happened? When it comes to Robinson, he won 61% of his games. He made the playoffs 4 out of 6 years. He went to an AFC title game with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. When he sits down with the Jets, the number one thing they're going to want to ask is, what happened in Tennessee? But because the Titans have been so bad and so dysfunctional, and it's every Sunday, he doesn't really have to answer that question with much detail now, does he? Well, we didn't win them all in Tennessee. We didn't win the Super Bowl because we ran into Patrick Mahomes. But we got as close as you possibly could. And look at how things have gone since I left. That's compelling. Vrabel, again, nobody out there thinks that Mike Vrabel is the problem with why the Titans were bad. And this season has basically confirmed what most people outside of the city believe. Again, I'm fine with firing Vrabel. I have no problem with that. But I wasn't fine with giving a promotion to Rand Carthon. That's what they've done. They've gotten worse. Everybody knows. Well, it's the Titans. And that should be enough for you to realize what you've been doing has put you, before she fired John Robinson, you were in the discussion with Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Cincinnati, the teams that were always fighting in the AFC. Every year there was a new team that would come in. They'd pop in a Johnny-come-lately, like the Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson. And every now and then there'd be another one of these teams that would kind of sneak in as the last seed. Phillip Rivers and the Colts snuck in as the last seed one of those years. But for about a 3 or 4 year period, it was Tennessee, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. And since then, it's you, the Jets, the Panthers, the Jags, the Raiders. The Commanders got a new owner, and with their new owner, the Commanders are no longer in that class. So Robinson will sit down with the Jets, and he doesn't have to explain what happened in Tennessee. He won 61% of his games, and the owner went crazy. The end. And it's hard to argue because look at what life's been like since he left. Adam in Portland is up next on our program. Adam, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Congrats, Jared, on the baby.
Thank you.
Pretty wild, man. Left the Titans house, and I don't know if your experience is the same as mine, but it's like, all right, dude. I told him that the ticket guy, I'm like, it's good that you get to try to sell the new stadium. He doesn't have to sell this stadium that they're currently in because it's horrible for Titans fans. Like, nobody was happy in there. It was just like, oh, okay, we could go to a, college hoops, Final Four or something later. But it wasn't like, I want to go see the Titans. I told Ian, they showed a Derrick Henry video, him running. I'm like, there's nothing. Rand and Callahan trying to get people fired up. This team has nobody excited, man. You know me. I've been calling you for 6-7 years, whatever. I'm not excited about them. I don't love them right now. Like, I still love them, but I don't love them, man. Like, I've got so much hate. It's almost like you said you're depressed, and it makes you depressed for the whole season. I'm so disconnected from this season, like, of just not caring. I've never been like that. It's the first time I've ever been like that. So they've got to fix that part. The fans are disconnected. At least I am.
Yeah, fans hate losing. I hate to say it, like, no duh. This, again, the idea of, like, remember when the Titans Miss Amy was headed to the tailgates and the fans were loving her and they were winning. And now you're mad at the team because they're losing. Got it. That's not complicated. Let me say this about the Titans, the fan base, and where it's headed. I don't think she can sell this group to this fan base next year. I don't think she can do it. And I don't even think she's going to try. LD from McMinnville texted in, and he said she will not fire Rand Carthon, and you know exactly why she won't. And my guess is there's an underlying tone that she won't do it because he's a minority, which, again, I don't believe this stuff that people say about, well, the Titans hired him because, and anytime I hear somebody bring that up, it honestly makes my skin crawl because there's no evidence that points to that that's why they hired Rand Carthon. At this point, I think the results have been so bad that it doesn't matter. And the fans, they just want a winning product. So I'm not totally on board with that last part there. One text said, John Robinson is absolutely going to be asked why he traded away A.J. Brown. And that's fair. But again, you can chalk up everything that went wrong to it's the Titans. And do you think the Jets would not believe it? If Robinson went in there and said, hey, we were negotiating with A.J. Brown, and Amy Adams Strunk came in and said, I'm mad with the way A.J.'s tweeting, trade him, even if that's a bold-faced lie, don't you think they'd believe it? That sounds like somebody impulsive that would fire Mike Vrabel and defer to Rand Carthon would do, right? So, to me, that stuff, that's the pretty simple stuff. One texter says, I totally agree with you completely. This is a total mess, and I'm a Cowboy fan, so I should know what a mess looks like. Will Levis is a bust, the GM is a moron, and I'm starting to think the owner is just as in the way of their success as Jerry Jones. Here's what I really believe. And, it's funny because I defend Robinson a lot, and Vrabel looks like a prince with how this season has gone, but they're not blameless with kind of the downfall of the last era of the Titans. Clearly what happened was everybody got arrogant. Everybody thought they were the reason for the team's success, or everybody wanted to be in charge. Robinson, Vrabel, Amy. And it got personal between probably all of them. I don't think Amy wants to be Jerry Jones where they show her up in the box every time an interception is thrown, which I think Jerry wants. I don't think if this team ever does win the Super Bowl, that Amy's going to get up there and say, I'm the reason why we won the Super Bowl, not Jimmy Johnson, like Jerry did. But I absolutely think Amy wanting to do things her way Again, her first act as controlling owner was to bring in Steve Underwood. Steve Underwood fired Ken Wisenhunt. Steve Underwood picked up the phone and called Floyd Reese, and they hired John Robinson. But Amy wanted to do things her way. She wanted a collaborative team. And I believe that wanting to do things her way had good intentions, but it's not really how the NFL works, if I had to guess. One texter says, I have some hope next year because they're of the solid foundations with the defense. What? Pollard and receiving core to build on. Again, there's one receiver, Ridley. NWI is a free agent, and everybody else is a Scarbini. Either they can find a serviceable quarterback in free agency, trade for a prospect like Hendon Hooker to develop, or keep Will Levis. If they fire Rand, fine. Maybe the organization needs a new direction. If not, maybe we'll make the most of it. I'm excited for the future, and I'm confident that this can be a contender sooner rather than later. Is this Amy's phone number that just texted? I mean, and also, what? Let's, again, go through each little nook and cranny of this text. I have some hope for next year because of the solid foundations with the defense.
Solid foundation.
Is there?
On
They're
defense?
28th in points allowed.
I mean, the defense is okay.
How many
it's
good
solid.
young players are on the defense? Do they have a good young edge rusher?
No.
Okay. Do they have a good young DT?
Two of them. Two good DTs. Yeah.
They have one good DT and one run-stuffing nose tackle.
He's a good DT. Two good DTs.
He is not a good DT.
He is. Is he a pass
No, he's
rusher?
not.
No, but he's a fine DT. Yes, good.
He is a nose tackle who you should have taken in the 4th round. He is not a foundational piece. Do they have a good young linebacker?
Maybe if they bring back Kenneth Murray.
Well, he, I think, is under contract for next year. But again,
Then he's solid. Yeah.
I said good.
Yeah.
I'm talking about good.
He's good.
I'm talking about Roquan Smith. I'm talking about good.
Is Roquan Smith good or very good?
Again, we're talking about
Leading the team in
solid
tackles?
foundation.
No. Solid foundation. Murray is a solid inside linebacker. You don't need to
That's
spend
like
the
saying
money on
Aziz
Aziz.
is a solid foundational piece. Aziz is not a
He's
foundational
way
piece
cheaper
with
than
the defense.
Aziz.
Again, a foundational piece is Fred Warner. We're talking foundational pieces. There's one, Simmons. Nobody in the secondary is a foundational piece.
McCreary? Maybe
I
Brownlee?
don't think so. No, Brownlee's not even a real starter in the NFL.
Maybe.
Again, so that, no. Pollard, fine, whatever, but he's a running back and he's not a special running back. And a receiving core, one guy, Ridley. I mean, and the guy wants to trade for Hendon Hooker. There you go. That's your answer. Jeff is up next on the program. Jeff, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared. I just wanted to make a quick point that I feel like the Titans this year, they specifically just want to go after your money. And I just real quick, I called my ticket rep this year because I told her, hey, I got a 2-year-old and 3-year-old. It's getting difficult to buy season tickets. I don't think I'm going to renew. And her first response to me was, well, your price locked in for next year. Maybe you want to see if you can find a friend or family member to go on the tickets with you. And I'm tired of every year, week 1 comes around, hey, be sure and renew your tickets for next year so you can get that price lock. Or this year, I think it was week 2 or 3, they wanted you to go ahead and lock in your playoff tickets so that you could get those first.
Did you get your playoff tickets this year?
Hell no.
Here's what I'll say. As far as the tickets and everything else are concerned, Jeff, and I appreciate your call. Here's what I'll say about all of this. The one thing that I don't think I like is that you have to keep buying your season tickets in order to get your credit for your PSL at the new Nissan Stadium, and I don't think they should do that. I think if you bought a PSL at old Nissan Stadium, the credit, because they're like $1,000 for the old PSLs, and it's like $30,000 for the new ones. You should get that $1,000 credit off of $35,000. You should get that credit even if you don't buy season tickets next year because the team sucks. And they need to admit that. They'll raise the prices when they're good. They need to admit it now. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, the game, the Commodore Hour coming up after us here on the program. Ian, apparently I missed this, but yesterday when the Titans scored on the last play of the game, which the extra point they don't have because it didn't affect the outcome, apparently somebody texted in and said Colt Anderson looked at Callahan with the 2, like we're going for 2, and that Callahan had to tell him that it didn't matter that the game was
I missed
over
that.
anyways.
I missed that.
I missed it too. I don't want to say that he did it because I didn't see it, but that's
Yeah.
pretty funny.
I was in and out watching the game. It's tough right now.
If Colt Anderson doesn't know the rules again, I don't even know at this point what to say. Like, let's not, kid ourselves. We've already seen him not know the rules, so I don't think it'd shock us at this point. This has been a miserable football season. I'm just going to say what it is. Tonight we get to see Sam Darnold play again, and there is plenty of room on the caboose of the I told you all so about Sam Darnold if you'd like to get on. So I want to end the show today by thanking everybody that has sent in a congratulatory message into the text line or on Twitter or on Instagram or whatever it may be. If you don't know, my girlfriend Lindsay and I welcomed our son Jack into the world on Wednesday morning. It was an incredibly daunting pregnancy, but a rather easy labor and delivery, which we were incredibly thankful for. I can't even describe what it's like. I mean, I've heard people talk to me about what it's like becoming a father, but I can't really describe what it was like for me. It was between anxiety and joy and just excitement. I can't even describe it. I didn't think that was going to be what was going to be on my bingo card in 2024. But if I've learned anything in life, it's to always prepare for the unexpected and to always prepare for what's next. And I couldn't be happier. And we couldn't be happier. And honestly, I don't think he could be more adorable. We've given him the name Jackson Reese Stillman after the old man because that's how much he meant to me. And I want to thank everybody out there who supported us, and said their words of congratulations and everything else. And hopefully the Titans can get better because unfortunately he's probably going to have to root for them. That's it for us. Commodore Hour is up next.